The greatest weekend in all of college is coming to a close as the 74th edition of the Men's Little 500 is just moments away. Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Little 500 preview show. I'm Joe Crone, alongside me, Kennedy Redclaw. Kennedy, this is it for you. Last Little Five.
This is it. After yesterday's race, it's truly the final race of my college experience. But why don't you get us started?
Let's get going. Let's get going on the men's side. 3PH, they made some noise this spring with their highlight coming from quals. It wasn't just noise. The 2:25.414 was the fastest ever time 3PH has had in quals. The historic time put the team at third in the qualifications, and despite a quiet spring series, 3PH is set up in a great position from the record-breaking quals.
Things looked a little different this year for the usually dominant Phi Kappa Psi team. Off to a quick start in their first qual attempt, the bike exchange fell short. History then repeated itself with a second failed bike exchange. Phi Psi had to resort to the dreaded third attempt, where it was about finishing successfully rather than speed, resulting in a 27th place qual, their lowest since 2012. Phi Psi will look to turn things around and snap the misfortune that they have faced in recent history.
Yeah, that was quite the crash. SAE, though, they had a dominant spring series, finishing first in the leaderboard. To kick it off, the experienced squad finished second in quals as Luke Noss controlled 2 of the 4 laps. You can tell this team is hungry, as in the ITTs, Luke Noss took the top time by 2.5 seconds, while 4 SAE riders took top 20 spots, as they would come away with the win in the ITTs. They continued their impressive spring with a first-place finish in Missing Out and second-place finish in Team Pursuit. Between Luke and his brother Matthew Noss, Lucas Lemmy, and Rhett Scavarna, this SAE team is fast, and they're looking for the team's second ever Little 500 win and first since 1963.
It had been a rocky road for the Black Key Bulls prior to becoming the 2024 Little 500 champion. The 2023 season came to a disastrous halt when they did not successfully complete a qual and therefore missed the race. However, they seem to still be riding the high and the wave this season as they took the pole spot for the first time in team history at quals. ITTs for the team was highlighted by a third-place performance from senior captain Will Wagner and a 12th place from Wiley Close. Missing Out was a disappointing showing, finishing in 7th, followed by a tense loss to SAE in Team Pursuit. BKB is sitting pretty in the 3rd overall spot on the spring series board, but eagerly awaits another shot at SAE and a chance at a back-to-back title.
The Team Pursuit portion of the spring series was an instant classic as the Powerhouse Cutter squad and SAE went toe-to-toe in the finals. The Judah Thompson and Luke Noss saga continues, as the SAE faithful was out in full force to cheer on their team. Despite losing a rider in the race, the winningest Little 500 team in Cutters came away with the first place finish by just under 0.2 of a second. That was a great race right there. 2 storied programs. Cutters, they're chasing more history on their team. And then SAE, it's been so long since they won. We see the quals results right here. Kennedy, that was top 3 spots. It's competitive and a little surprising as well.
Absolutely. Those top 3, BKB, this was their first quals win ever coming off of last season. It's definitely a will to survive at this point. They're continuing their way into this race and trying to be that powerhouse that they know they can be. SAE is right there with them, once again dominant, and they're going to be head-to-head. They're going to be competitive. And once again, kind of riding right next to each other. When we look at those pits later, they did choose to be right next to each other, which will definitely keep things interesting. But it is notable to note that Cutters did not have the qual that they were looking for, so I'm not surprised that they went out and got the rest of the spring series kind of done the way they needed to, because that wasn't necessarily the performance they were looking for.
Definitely going to want to look out for the pit of BKB and SAE. Those are, we've been seeing them butt heads throughout this spring season, though, but coming up we have an introduction to the Black Key Bulls from our very own Austin Platt, and then I had the chance to sit down with 3 of their riders. Don't go anywhere.
Yes! Is that the first from not putting one up 2 years ago to putting it on the top feels good right now.
In 2 years, Black Key Bulls has gone from failing to qualify to the podium top, and now the pole position. But the team knows it can't let last year's win cloud its judgment heading into this year's race.
Can't really think about what happened last year. All that's in the past. We have to start back at square one. With the same mindset that we didn't qualify in the previous year, and really just putting in the same amount of work as last year, if not more, just because we're going to have that target on our back come April 26th.
BKB returned its top 2 riders, Wiley Close and Will Wagner. And the addition of Paul Lee has the team confident it can go back-to-back.
It's been a great experience. I actually sat out a year so I could join BKB because I was on a different team previously. So it's been a really full circle moment, and it's just cool to see like all the work that we've put in together come to fruition. And it's just really exciting to see what we have ahead of us and the opportunity to win and bring a two-peat to BKB.
It's just been like a perfect match. He has the perfect work ethic, and he just enjoys being around the guys, and it's been a good addition for sure.
Also returning is Jordan Bailey, alumni coach and former race director, whose role has expanded drastically.
I text him every single day and talk to him a couple of times a week on the phone. I don't even view Jordan strictly as my coach anymore. I'd say he's more of a friend and like mentor to me. So I think that is just pretty special and something that a lot of other teams may not necessarily get to experience.
Even with a familiar group, BKB finds itself in an unfamiliar situation. On the pole for the first time after a spring series, which they feel left something to be desired.
We don't taper for spring series. Our goal is always to win the race. I think it went probably a little worse than we would have wanted it to go.
With spring series in the past, the attention turns to race day, as BKB looks to two-peat for the first time in team history. For IU Sports Media, I'm Austin Platt.
Welcome back in. I'm being joined now by three riders of last year's Little 500 champion Black Key Bulls. We have Paul Lee, Will Wagner, and Zach Villarreal. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. Zach, I'll start with you, and really a question for all three. I mean, how are you feeling Little 5 is just right around the corner?
It's like really snuck up on me. Like last week we were getting texts or literally earlier this week we were getting texts in the chat. It's like, yeah, we'll see you guys next weekend. It was like,
huh?
Oh, it's next weekend. Yeah, crazy to think about.
I'm pumped. I've waited all year, like literally since April 20th, the day of the men's race last year. Since then, I've just been looking forward to next weekend.
Paul?
Yeah, it's been really exciting. It's been a big build-up, and then right when quals happened, it started to get really real, and then you got all the spring series events, and now we're just 10 days out, so
I'll ask a bit about the spring series stuff, but first I am curious, kind of back through all three of you, what drew you to Black Key Bulls? Obviously, like with a lot of the frat teams, it's you rush a frat, maybe you're interested in riding, but Paul, I'll start with you. I mean, what drew you to this team, and like how is the camaraderie of having something that's separate than a fraternity?
I think definitely the culture of the team and like how bonded the guys are together. Did someone else take that?
I don't know, you're good.
Honestly, my freshman year, a couple weeks into the school year, I went to the call-out meeting, and at the call-out meeting, I met someone named Daniel Kang, who was a rider for the team, a junior at the time, and after meeting him and then meeting a lot of the other guys, I just realized how big of a community the Little 500 was, and specifically how Black Key Bulls kind of fits into that community, and I thought it was pretty special how we're really not associated with a fraternity and how they all kind of come together and focus on the same common goal of winning. And I didn't even know that it was a super competitive team at the time, so that took me by surprise.
Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think connections to alumni are like a big reason why a lot of us end up being here. I'm from Valparaiso, Indiana, so Northwest Indiana, like the region area. And one of the alumni worked at the same running shoe store I worked at. And I like happened to just like go to Little 5, love the idea of it, of like riding, reached out to him and he got me in contact, and it's been like the greatest decision I've had ever since. And the nice thing about like the independence too is we get to recruit whoever we want. So if we don't like someone or they don't fit into the culture, it's not like a house where they kind of give you a guy. We get to curate what culture we want, and I think it's a big reason on why we're successful.
So on to the spring series, third overall in the spring series, very high, but the big thing was quals. Pole position. I mean, what was the moment like, you know, slapping your name in the first, and let any one of you take it, just what was that feeling like? I mean, first time ever, right?
Yeah, first time in BKB's history. That was special. For me personally, I was on the team that didn't qualify in 2023, and I kind of knew everything that it took to qualify, so we did that in 2024. We got third, and then this year we put in like a ton of work just on exchanges, making sure we kind of perfected the bike-to-bike and just performed it perfectly that day.
Any other thoughts about that moment?
It's cool as we're part of like such a storied, like successful team to like do something that's the first in history. It was like a big and like a cool thing. Again, we've done everything. We've won Little Fives, we've won white jerseys, team pursuits, whatnot. So it's cool to like check off a box that BKB hadn't done before.
As this spring series gone along, and especially with quals, there was a moment that the Little 500 documentary came out with SAE and kind of some chirping going back and forth. I saw when you guys were riding, you were getting booed. I mean, where'd this come from? And you kind of like having maybe this chip on your shoulder that a team maybe a little bit of a rivalry going on?
Personally, I kind of love the rivalry. With the actual guys on the team, it's all love. Like, we're really cool with everybody in the field, and I think that a lot of the fans kind of can blow it out of proportions, the competitiveness, and make it into something it's not. But at the same time, I do kind of like the competition and what the fans bring of it.
Really only got just like one more, Will. I got to ask you, though, last year, you know, you take over the bike lap 196, able to cross the finish line. What is that, you know, stretch of 10 minutes like for you?
Yeah, that was probably one of the craziest like spans in my life. Just all the emotions of the work that I put in on and off the bike coming together and coming into fruition, crossing that line on 200. To quote Jack Hanlos, it meant everything to me, and it was just an amazing experience surrounded by all the people that mean a lot in my life.
Last one for you, all three of you. Paul, I'll start with you if you want to take it. How would you describe this year's BKB team?
I would definitely say we're a really resilient bunch and we're consistent. You know, we have, I believe, is the hardest training plan. We're always out there, no matter how cold it is, doing 90s and getting our workouts in, no matter if it's late or whatever it may be. I say we are very consistent, and that is really what drives us.
Will?
I'd definitely say hungry. I mean, last year was just a taste of victory, and this year we're hungry even for more.
Wiley had a good quote that last year wasn't a fluke, and I think that's kind of what embodies this team. 2024 was 2024. We won the race. That's behind us. It's time to win another.
Now it's 2025. Well, Zach, Will, Paul, thank you so much for joining me here in the studio. Zach and Kennedy will have you covered for the grid analysis coming up.
Thank you, Joe. Zach Browning with you. Kennedy back as well, breaking down the pit positions for this afternoon's race. Starting with turn 4, Kennedy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll dive right in. I think the notable here is cutters. We see them being right next to the finish line, which actually can be a great advantage when it comes to the exchanging. For this, there's only going to be one team coming in on the same side as them, where that other side's going to be completely free space for them when it's time to exchange. But now we're going to turn to the back end of the track. Zach, what do you see here?
Well, you look at some teams, Novus is here. You've got a lot of good, solid teams back here, but it's all just in a little bit of a bunch. You've got Chi Alpha and SIGEP at the bottom. I think those are probably the two teams we're looking at down this back stretch. You've got Chi Alpha, SIGEP. Those are the teams to watch here down the back stretch of the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we saw them being in the top 5 ranks, so they really got their pick of the pits, and that was where they chose. But really, the jam-packed is over here in turn 1, which is why we saved the best for last. So we're going to look at these 3 main 3PH, SAE, and Black Key Bulls. All 3 of them chose to be back-to-back-to-back, which can only amount to even more competition. But anything else you noticed for them?
I don't know. Turn 1, the heavy hitters. BKB, obviously.
At most college campuses, April marks the beginning of the end of another school year. But at Indiana, the hype and anticipation of a college campus only ramp up as riders gear up for a bike race. The roar of the crowd, the rush of the riders, the ultimate test of endurance, strategy, teamwork, and sheer willpower can only mean one thing: the Little 500. Since 1951, Indiana University has hosted the nation's biggest and best collegiate cycling race. Inspired by the Indianapolis 500, this one-of-a-kind event brings together students from across the country to watch student teams across campus battle it out on a cinder track for ultimate glory. 4 riders, 200 laps, thousands of fans packed into historic Bill Armstrong Stadium. One day in April, filled with raw speed and determination. But it's more than just a race. It's a tradition, a community, a celebration, a culmination of weeks, hours, and years riding on the rollers and roads for the chance to etch your name in history. And for one weekend, Bloomington becomes the epicenter of college sports, school spirit, Greek life, and unforgettable moments.
Come around for the white flag. Sprint to the finish. Light blue Black Key Bulls. Going to beat Cutters. Black Key Bulls
wins the 2024 Little 500.
This is the 74th running of the men's Little 500. Welcome to the world's greatest college weekend.
In 49 states, it's just a bike race, but in Indiana, it's the greatest college weekend of all time. Months and years of training, sacrifice, blood, sweat, tears have all culminated to this moment. 33 teams, 200 laps, one chance at IU immortality. Welcome to the 74th running of the men's Little 500. I'm Riley Woodall alongside Kara Adams and former 3PH rider Max Parker. Kara, it all comes down to this.
It does, Riley. Yesterday was a great race. We already got things going with the women's race, the sprint finish, so today's going to be a good one.
Max, you've raced in this race before. What are the emotions? What are the thoughts going through these riders' heads today?
It's all about the spectacle. You got on the front page of the IDS, the hallmark of Indiana student media. This is what you've got. A Little 500, this place is packed, folks. And just feeding off the energy, the noise that is all around everywhere you look, this is a special day.
As Anakin Skywalker says, this is where the fun begins. Let's take a look at last year's race. BKB won it after not even qualifying for the race 2 years ago, but Kara, SAE, got out to that early lead.
They did get out to that early lead, but it did not work for them. They went out too early, and eventually BKB, SIGEP, Cutters, Delts, all four of those teams kind of worked together to reel them back in, and they were able to do it, and BKB ended up getting the win.
Yeah, the breakaway strat did not work for them, Max, last year. And again, BKB able to get it done.
Yeah, and again, this is where we start our long journey looking into the mind games that are played at this race. It is not just cycling for 200 laps. It is strategy involved, and there's a heck of a lot of science in there that's far beyond my pay grade here. But one thing I do know, if you're out front by yourself, you are eating a lot of wind physically. You got to push a lot more, expend a lot more energy, and you're also alone out there mindset-wise. So teams that fire too early, that's a huge risk compared to, as we saw last year, the bunch working together, coming back. I would expect those teams that fired early last year, they might dial it back a little bit. I know you've got more on that.
All right, let's get into BKB this year. They are starting in the pole position, the first time in their team's history to start in the first position. Kara, they're also trying to go back-to-back for the first time in their team's history.
They are, and they're led by Will Wagner, senior, one of their strongest riders, one of the fastest riders in the men's field. I know we'll get into that later, but also they return Wiley Close, another super strong rider, and they've got Paul Lee, who actually stood out for a year to join BKB. So they've got a lot of strong and a lot of depth on that team.
Max, how do they manage the external and also the internal expectations today?
I mean, a lot of it starts with confidence, and they get to come in wearing that yellow jersey. That draws a lot of attention. That gives you a lot of confidence and should give you quite the boost knowing you won last year. They just got to trust their work. I know BKB is a team. Credit to all these teams here. They put in a ton of work all year long. BKB, this is what they do. They are here to win the Little 500, so they got to trust their work. I was talking to some of the guys on the team I used to ride on 3PH, and I would imagine the coaches are telling every other team right now, trust your work and let the rest go and go have fun.
I like that advice. We'll move on to a team that has kind of become their hated rivals this spring series. SAE looking for their first win since 1963. As we mentioned, Max, the breakaway strat getting ahead early. It didn't pay off for them last year. How do you think they're going to manage the race this year?
Well, if I were their coach and I were planning, I'd say don't do that again. Just because they have what it takes to win the race if they keep it tight. You look at just the spring series results and specifically individual time trials. Luke Noss blew that time out of the water, rocketed up to first place. That is a kid that can keep pedal stroke for pedal stroke with the best on this track. So if SAE can just keep it together until the end, I'd be pretty happy if I were in that SAE jersey that I can send out Luke Noss to go win the bicycle race. So they've just got to keep it together. I would imagine they reel it back, keep their cards close as they go through the race until a little bit later.
Max alluded to it, Kara. SAE has the fastest rider in the field, Luke Noss. Big L and his brother Matthew Noss are going to be critical for SAE's success today.
They definitely will be, and it's a family affair. Their dad coaches their team too. Their mom coaches for Kappa Kappa Gamma, so they've been around bikes their entire life, and they're two of the fastest riders in the field. But something else to note about SAE is they returned all 4 of those riders from last year's team. They have that experience. Luke Noss has said it himself. They know what happened last year. He said that he was almost glad they lost because it motivated them even more to get it done this year.
Yeah, you mentioned it. It's a family affair for the Nosses and for SAE. You mentioned it as well. One of 4 teams to return all 4 riders from last year. We've talked about it. It's personal for a lot of teams in the Little 500, but for SAE, it hits home.
The goal is to win the race.
That's been the goal since day one, since we got off the bike on lap 200 last year.
Blackie Bulls wins the 2024 Little 500!
Sigma Alpha Epsilon, or SAE, was primed for their 2nd win ever at last year's Little 500.
SAE finished 6th after leading for the most laps in the race.
But they came up short.
That was pretty defeating. After I got dropped like 2 laps to go, I just sat in turn 3 and just was like, damn, I wasted a whole year.
So SAE wasted no time in structuring a new training regimen, dialing up their time and efficiency on the bike.
It's definitely been more intense. We've leaned in more to the training aspect, following our coach's guidance to a T, doing every single workout.
I think last year we were all a little bit head in the clouds. We knew what we were doing, but we weren't as committed. Honestly, I'm kind of glad we lost, honestly, though, because it just gave us that much more energy going into this year.
And this year has the potential to be SAE's best year in recent memory. Why?
Everyone's returning and having the experience of knowing what we did last year, what went well, what didn't go well. Just that will help us adjust.
For the Noss brothers, there's added motivation knowing it's Luke's last shot at Little 5 glory.
It would be nice to, for all of us to win, but also knowing it's his last one, his last go around. So I think we'd all like to give him a win.
To see the work we've put in, the years, the hours, the sacrifices, to have some sort of payoff would be incredible.
Incredible, knowing this is the last time they ride together.
Come on, right, get him! Dude, right.
As a team.
It's not even for myself at this point. It's for not only my teammates, but everyone who supports us. I mean, we have people coming to like IGTs yesterday on a Tuesday night, like my dad, my uncle. It'd just be really special. I don't even know how I'm gonna feel about it, but it'll be really nice.
We understand that this is our time and we've worked really hard for this moment. So I think crossing the line first would be the best feeling in the world.
Just an awesome story. That's what makes Little 5 so special, guys. Shout out Graham Nash, by the way. Great package on SAE. They're going to be contending with BKB. We've underscored it a little bit. We've talked about it, guys. It's a heated rivalry between SAE and BKB. This is going to be fun to watch today.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Their pits are right next to each other as well, so there's just going to be energy already from SAE student section and all of the fans here for BKB. So the energy and the vibes will be great, and it's going to, if it comes down to a sprint, we're going to have a great finish.
Max Wagner versus Noss. This is going to be great.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the fun of this sport is, especially the Little 500, it's not like other sports where each team has their own training facility, everybody's off. Every day in the spring leading up to this race, everybody's on the same track. They all get to watch each other work. They all get to compete and see what each other is doing, what kind of stuff they might have on race day. And now this is the time where you get to lay it all out. This is what really matters. But the fun that kind of helps build these rivalries is that's building all year long because everybody's right here. It's a small track, a quarter mile around. You don't have to go very far to see your rivals.
Real quickly, let's make our picks. Who is going to win today, the 74th running of the men's Little 500? Max, you're first.
As an alum, I got to bring out my prop here.
Here we go. Here we go.
3PH, baby. I love what they're doing. You know, this was the fastest qual time in team history. They're in the front row. This is the best start that this 3PH team has ever had. And you know what? Broadening out, I'll take a little bit of bias out of there as a 3PH alum. Give me the front row. I know it's a little bit of a cop-out here, but anybody from the front row, man, that is a stacked group. Solid stuff up there.
A lot of talent. It's going to be fun to see those guys go against each other today. Kara, who you got?
I'm going to go with SIGEP. I feel like they've been kind of under the radar a little this spring, but their pits over there in that turn 3 that we talked about yesterday, where they're kind of avoiding the traffic on some of those big exchanges. I'm going to go with SIGEP. I think they could maybe get it done this year.
They could shock some people starting in that 4 spot over there in turn 3. Hear me out. BKB, pole sitter, first time in team history. Wiley Close, Will Wagner, solid team. But here's the deal. No one's won from the 12th position. Now you're probably wondering, where does that come in? You know who's starting 12th? Cutters. Give me the Cutters to win the 74th Little 500 for the men, their 16th win in team history. Now, let's go upstairs. On the call for the 74th running of the men's Little 500, Austin Platt and Matt McGorry.
Thank you, Riley. The stage is set at Bill Armstrong Stadium for the 74th running of the men's Little 500. There is head Indiana football coach Kurt Signetti alongside former Jet Black rider Matt McGorry. I am Austin Platt. Matt, welcome back to Bloomington, and welcome to race day.
It's great to be back, Austin. It is a beautiful day to bike in Bloomington. I am so excited for this race. We had a phenomenal event yesterday with the women's race that was very dynamic, very chaotic, and very exciting. I'm hoping to see a similar race today.
Take me through what kind of the day in the life of a rider looks like as someone who has gone through this before. What time you getting over the track? What are you eating? What time you getting up? Kind of what does it all lead up to right now?
You know, everything leads to Saturday, but this is a busy time of year as a student. You're likely wrapping up your courses, having finals, your friends, family, and alumni are coming into town. On Saturday, it's all about kind of blocking all of that out, focusing in the morning, kind of doing the absolute minimum, warming up properly in your team facility, eating and hydrating as best you can, trying to stay out of the sun, trying to stay warmed up, Austin, and ultimately, honestly, leaning into the adrenaline and kind of taking it all in.
All right, enough about us. Let's now focus on the riders that will be riding in this race. One of the top teams and riders that we've already mentioned is Cutters with Judah Thompson. Judah in his 3rd race, won it his freshman year, now trying to do the same in his junior year. Always one of the top and smartest riders in the field.
And, you know, Judah's a rider, closed the last lap of last year's race in 32.9 seconds after doing 100 laps. Talking to the field, he has some of the most respect and kind of well wishes that other riders speak to him about. He's well respected. We'll have to look to see if he can win from the same pit he did 2 years ago today.
Last year, Cutters finished 2nd, qualified 12th, didn't have the best qual time, but qualifications, as we'll mention, isn't always the best indicator. Everyone is chasing, however, Blackhea Bulls. This rivalry that is budding between 2 independent teams is awesome. Such a close margin last year. Judah Thompson crossed the line after Will Wagner did, and always these two, the top 2 independent teams seemingly in the race, and always 2 favorites.
They don't have a fraternity backing them up. They have their alumni, their culture, their experience. Both BKB and Cutters will certainly manifest and showcase what a properly disciplined Little 5 team looks like on the track today.
Well, another team that doesn't necessarily have a fraternity behind them, one of the dorm teams. We don't usually see these every single year, but Forest Cycling always in the mix. This year they qualified 5th, returned 3 riders from last year. They're in the middle of row 2, a very solid qual time from Forest. What are you looking for them?
I'm looking for them to have a safe start today. Forest, as you mentioned, is kind of a historic team, the last dorm team. Being on the 2nd row to start will let them stay near the front for the first few laps, dodge any kind of early crashes, and ultimately help them get to a great start today, Austin.
They'll be in the orange today. I love the phrase they have on the back of their shirts, roll trees. That's an early indicator for best phrase maybe by any of the fan bases. Let's talk about now the weather. A gorgeous day outside. You know, temperatures rising into the 60s. You looked at the pack house already here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. We got the weather from the American Meteorological Society. That is tough to say, Matt. Gorgeous day. The wind could, however, play a factor.
Keeping you sharp with the tongue twisters, Austin. I think the wind coming in from the north will be a key thing to look out for, and especially in turns 1 and 3. And you know, if you look in the sky, you see some happy little clouds out there. I don't think they will become a big issue today. I expect a lot of sun, but overall, I think this is a phenomenal weather for a bike race.
You remember when you kind of did the parade lap, walking around, you know, shaking the hands of, in this case for these riders, President Pam Whitten, Sydney Parrish, Chloe Moore McNeil, 2 Indiana women's basketball alums, and then Kurt Signetti. You kind of remember that and what that feeling was like?
What I remember is, man, I want to get back to my pit and focus and hop on the bike and spin as quickly as possible. The parade and kind of the theater around the Little 500, certainly for the spectators, is a treat to enjoy. If you're a rider, you want to focus and kind of get back to your pit and get ready to hop on the bike.
There's another big name. Nas obviously is so connected with this race. Obviously, Luke and Matthew are two of the riders. Bill is the dad, a Hall of Famer in 1996. The last time SAE won this race was in 1963. Matter of fact, Bill lost the race to Libby Lewis's dad, an AKO rider, yesterday to that Fiji team in 1995, and another motivator for the Nas family to bring home the W today.
And especially after last year, 103 laps off the front, trying to lap the field, one of the most kind of powerful teams in the race this year. We'll have to look to see if they've learned from last year and can maybe convert their strength to an ultimate kind of cross the line first on lap 200.
What are the nerves like right now for these riders?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I remember wanting to puke. I remember kind of getting goosebumps. The nerves are unreal, but honestly, Austin, that's actually something that will help them kind of focus and kind of operate to their best today. Ultimately, it's something that you think all year about, and when it's finally here, it's important to kind of take a deep breath, take it all in, and then get on the track and show what you've been training for.
Final few teams taking those photos. These are photos that will last a lifetime, memories that will last a lifetime, and then we'll get ready to go. We can now take a look at the team everyone is chasing. First-time pole sitters in Blackie Bulls. You look at, they finished top 10 every single year. Didn't qualify 2 years ago. Now three-time champs, hoping to go back-to-back for the first time.
And I think a key thing about BKB this year is that they've proved that they belong here. They've redeemed themselves from not being in the race in 2023. Winning last year, they were able to convert their opportunity at the end of the race. Being next to SAE again this year certainly will cause some kind of contention, I'm sure, and we'll have to keep an eye on how that plays out throughout the race.
Here's a look at some of the starters. President Pam Whitten. Kurt Signetti looks like a sheriff out there right now with that awesome cowboy hat on. He looks like he's about to try and go pull over people on the side of the road for speeding today. But it is game face on for everybody. And the final team, Army Cycling, qualifying 33rd. 33 teams in this race that can qualify. There were 38 that attempted to qualify. All 37 of them put down a time. Lambda Chi Alpha, who qualified 4th last year, were unable to qualify. You get 3 attempts to do so, and obviously the best 33 times are into this field. We saw another full women's field yesterday, a phenomenal race, an epic finish. We saw back-to-back Kappa Alpha Theta winning for the 10th time in their history. So that could mean good things for BKB today. It could mean also that the most historic team in the race wins. So Cutters or BKB, they must be feeling pretty good seeing what they saw yesterday.
And especially with yesterday's race, enabling each of the kind of top contending teams to truly put it on the track. I think there were 7 or 8 teams on the lead lap at the end of the race. I expect a similar race today, where some of the teams who have been training all year and certainly are earmarked as one of the stronger ones to stay near the front. If I'm BKB, if I'm SAE, if I'm Cutters or any of the other contenders, I'm looking forward to just kind of getting underway here, trying to stay safe the first 40 or 50 laps, and then letting their kind of strengths show on the track.
The 33 starting bikes are all laid out just behind the starter car, or I should say truck, and with that we'll send it down to the field for the national anthem and back home again in Indiana.
Fans, let us pause for a moment of silence as we pay tribute to the lives we have lost this past year. Nathan Thomas, Gary Winder, John Carter, and Michael Patches Schroeder. All were important members of the Little 500, IU Student Foundation, and IU communities, and are greatly missed. Thank you. The Indiana University Student Foundation wishes to acknowledge and honor the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people, on whose ancestral homelands and resources Indiana University Bloomington is built. Presenting your colors today, IU's Army ROTC. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce you to the winners from the 2025 IU Sing a cappella competition, Humra. Please rise and remove your hats for the singing of our national anthem.
One, two, three.
say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, of the
As the starting riders come to the start-finish line and we get ready for racing, another round performs back home again.
Do 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 back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining through the sycamores for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
Patrons with an infield credential pass may not enter the infield until the race is completed. Please clear the infield at this time. We now welcome to the stage today's race starter, National Coach of the Year, Kurt Signetti. along with our Grand Marshals, Sydney Parrish and Chloe Moore McNeil.
All right, we ready for this? Riders, ride smart today, keep your head up, and best of luck. Now it's time. Gentlemen, mount your rocket ship. Let's go.
You heard the man. Get on those bikes. Who's ready for racing? A reminder to riders and officials, we shall have 3 laps before the green flag, 2 slow warm-up laps and 1 faster pace lap.
Is 1 of 1. And speaking of number 1, our Riley Woodall is with the winners from yesterday, Kappa Alpha Theta.
Hey, thanks, Austin. Again, here with the now 10-time Little 500 champions, Kappa Alpha Theta. Guys, congratulations once again. What have the last 24 hours been like for you guys?
It's really just felt to be here and just celebrating with our alum. It's awesome.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think it just means so much to our program to capture this 10th win, and it means even more to have our family and friends in the stands.
What about you guys?
Oh my gosh, I mean, it just doesn't feel real, kind of what they said, and I think like it's just about like processing it, but also just celebrating with just the girls that I love so much and our families and our friends and our alumni. It's just amazing.
Just totally soaking it all up and soaking it all in. It's been so fun, and just to enjoy it with these 3 other people has been amazing.
Now, Bailey, you have a knack for clutch moments. You were on the bike when you won it for Theta last year. Yesterday, you out-sprinted the 2 fastest riders in the field on the last lap. What's going through your head on that final lap?
Just thinking about positioning and leaving it all out there. Before the race, I talked to these 3. I didn't really care where we placed as long as we knew we put everything that we had out there, and that's what we did, and I was so proud of everybody on our team for doing that.
Last question for you guys. Again, we talked about it. 10th win in Kappa Alpha Theta history. How does it feel? What does it mean to you guys that you were the team to get double-digit wins for Kappa Alpha Theta?
I mean, it's just so much greater than just like these 4 girls. It's our alumni, it's the women that started the race back in '87, and just seeing, they were here yesterday too, which was so incredible. And just like, we do it because they paved the way for us, and so it brings me so much joy and brings us so much peace and joy that we could bring them glory yesterday too.
Yeah, echoing everything Claire said, it's just an amazing feeling to be able to represent our chapter and our house and the people that have come before us.
Yeah, definitely a huge honor to be part of this legacy, so I know we couldn't be prouder of that.
Yeah, I think it's just a testament to all the hard work that everyone has put into this program currently and before us, and it's just an honor to represent it.
Congratulations, guys, once again. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. Again, Kappa Alpha Theta, 10-time Little 500 champions. We're now going to go to Kara, who's got a very special guest with her, Coach Sig, in the house. Kara.
Coach, from the moment you arrived on campus, the IU community really embraced your program. Now you're here today, the Grand Marshal of one of IU's most iconic events. What does that say about the spirit of Indiana?
Well, I mean, the tradition and history of this event, part of the fabric of the university and the town of Bloomington, and a big part of what makes Indiana University and Bloomington special.
Do you have any advice for the riders out there today?
Keep their head up, ride fast, be smart.
Thanks, Coach. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you, Kara, and thank you, Coach Sig. The second of 3 pace laps has begun here, and here's a look at the starting lineup. Row 1, it's BKB, SAE, and 3PH, 3 of the top teams in this field.
Really expect BKB and SAE to be up front the entire day. Certainly need to keep an eye on them throughout the race.
Row 2, it is Sigma Phi Epsilon, that's Sig Ep, Forest Cycling, who we mentioned earlier, and Chi Alpha. Not a ton of returning racers in this row.
Certainly, Austin, and I think another key thing is that Sig Ep really slow played spring series. We'll have to see today truly how strong they are.
Row 3, there's some former champions here. Phi Delta Theta, who won the race in 2022. Phi Gamma Delta, that's Fiji, who have won it 6 times. And Sigma Nu, maybe a team that is the most underrated out of any team in this field.
We don't have a most improved team award, but certainly Sigma Nu, if we did have one, would be the recipient this year. 2 in the top 6 of missing out. Really looking forward to seeing their performance today.
Row number 4, we can name this the breaking away row, with Chinzano and Cutters on the inside and outside, Human Wheels in the middle. Obviously, Cutters is the most historic team in this race. Owen Teed is the one of the top riders and the captain for Human Wheels, and Chinzano's a good team as well. Mau Brito, a top rider as well. Quickly to row 5, it's Macro Cycling, Delta Tau Delta, your former team, Matt, and Grey Goat. Delta obviously right in the middle, had a good spring series as well.
We'll see Cutters and Delta move to the front very quickly in this race and try to stay safe.
Row number 6, it's ASIG, Bears, and Chi-Phi in the inside, middle, and outside. Row 7, Novus, AKL, that's Alpha, Kappa, Lambda, and Americana. And then 4 more rows left. Pike, IUDM, and Godspeed, 22nd through 24th in qualifications. Row number 9, it's Tau Epsilon Phi back in the race for the 2nd time in 3 years. Alpha Kappa Psi and Phi Psi, who needed that 3rd time to qualify. Row number 10, it's CSF Cycling, Theta Chi, Phi Sigma Kappa. And then in the final row, Delta Sig, Beta Theta Pi, and Army Cycling. The pace car is gone. This is and always will be the world's greatest college weekend. This is the 74th running of the men's Little 500. The yellow jersey goes first of Blackie Bowles and Wiley Close, and the first of 200 laps is underway.
As Signetti said, we're on the spaceships and we're blasting off really fast lap 1 here, where it's really stringing out, seeing everybody try to move up and stay safe.
BKB with Close on the bike. For SAE, it's Matthew Noss, the freshman, behind him. 3PH has Nathan Imlay, a sophomore, in his 2nd race behind. And then Sigep, Forrest, and Kai Alpha, all single file for this first lap. This is where you can have these early crashes with the pack so close together, and now 1 lap in the books.
And we're going to see teams continue to try to move up and start kind of taking turns at the front, Austin. We want to certainly see a safe race, and unfortunately, in the first 15 to 20 laps is when we might see a big wreck like we did yesterday in the women's race.
Cutters is now quickly in 3rd with Billy Gregory, a senior, in his 3rd race on the bike. Single file they go.
So Cutters, despite qualifying 12th, is already actually 3rd. So they've been able to move up very quickly here and stay safe.
And this is where qualifications, the position you start with doesn't necessarily make a difference. And right now it's SAE and 3PH alongside Cutters is the top 3, with Sigep in there as well. Gus Kowalewski, their captain, a junior in his 2nd race, currently riding 4th. They lost Will Pitts and Max Martin to the top riders last year, but return Alex Hamilton as well as the captain, Kowalewski. 3PH and Nathan Imlay out in front right now.
And when you train all year and finally have a few weeks prior to the race to kind of step off the gas and kind of taper down a little bit, you feel incredible when you touch the bike. You feel like you can do anything, and sometimes riders get a little too overzealous and excited, but good to see a safe race so far here, and teams mostly move to the front and settle in.
Imlay gives way to Billy Gregory. Cutters, they've won this race 15 times, won it in 2023, finished 1st in team pursuit in what was a hectic spring series with the weather kind of all over the place this semester in Bloomington. The spring series events essentially had to be condensed, but Cutters really showed they are one of the deepest and best teams at the very top. And Gregory will give way to Matthew Noss and SAE. And a quick crash over on turn 4. 3 teams are down. Looked like a bike went over another. Phi Sigma Kappa and Delta Sig, 2 of the teams in the back of the pack, are involved.
Looks like
D-Sig rider is down.
Macro Cycling as well.
3 teams in there. Macro qualified 13th. Their rider got back up, but an early collision. Now bike's trying to be run across the infield. Andrew Flynn was on the bike. The captain was on the team last year when they finished 8th. We're gonna have to make an early exchange here.
You never want to see a wreck that early, Austin, but unfortunately it's just part of bike racing and something that these riders have grown accustomed to over the spring as they train on this track every day.
Connor Furlong is getting ready for the first exchange as we look at the lead pack. Phi Delta Theta is in there as well. They are out in front after 5 laps as Connor Furlong gets on the bike for Macro. He won missing out last year, 15th this year in individual time trials. He's got some work to do to catch up to the pack, currently being led by Thomas Reising and Fidel.
And also, we're starting to see some of the teams who didn't start at the front of the race to kind of come to the front and take a few turns. We see Sigma Nu on the front, followed by Delta Tau Delta here. Again, a lot of these teams want to get to the front and showcase just how strong they are and how much they've trained.
John Peterson is on the bike for Delts, the senior in his third race. Delts returns a couple riders from last year. Jack Lloyd, their captain, a senior in his first race. They had to replace a rider at the last second. Jack Sturchie was supposed to ride in his first race, but dealt with injuries. These are guys that go through injuries all spring long, all year long. And unfortunately, Matt, for your former team, Sturchie could not race today.
Very unfortunate, Austin. Sturchie, who was able to actually achieve a top 10 ITT time as a rookie, unfortunately had a knee injury that caused him to have to miss this race. But just like Delton and most of the top teams, having strong 3, 4, 5 riders enables you to show up and perform on race day regardless of injuries and kind of unhappy circumstances that arise throughout the race.
After 7 laps, it's still SAE in front. Quickly, Matt, how many laps in this first set do you expect for these top teams?
I'd expect about 15 to 25. The first set is all about staying safe, kind of getting into the race, not burning too many matches. Some teams have their best riders start the race. Some have a more experienced rider start the race. The goal is always to kind of get a few sets under your belt and then settle in and kind of execute the strategy you've outlined.
7 laps in, approaching the 8th here. It's Cutters in front with BKB and SAE as the top 3 at the moment. And it's Billy Gregory, Matthew Noss, and Wiley Close. The 3 riders still on for those 3 teams who are probably entering this race, the 3 favorites.
If you're at home and you haven't watched a lot of cycling, one thing I want to call out that will really help you understand what's going on is the element of drafting. If you are 3 to 4 kind of rows behind the lead cyclist, you're doing actually about 30 to 40% less effort. So you'll see throughout the race today that the top teams, they don't want to be on the front all the time. They'll kind of pull out into what would be lane 2 or lane 3 on a running track and enable other teams to take that front. That way they can kind of distribute the load and stay as fresh as possible.
You see Wiley Close tapping his helmet there. That usually means you got a few more laps in you in this set, but all 3 other BKB riders still on their bicycles. Both teams get 2 bikes as a team. You have the ability to do a bike-to-bike exchange or a rider-to-rider exchange. We saw that a little bit of an issue in the women's race yesterday. You get some crashes, some bikes pile up, and you told me that some teams were grabbing other teams' bikes, and you return to your pit, you have 3 or 4 bikes.
And Austin, at least this, it looks like we've been able to kind of get those numbers back onto the bike, zip tied there. So hoping that we're not stealing or unfortunately taking other teams' bikes today, but we'll have to see how it plays out.
Well, as Matt mentioned, we'll start to see our first few exchanges in a moment from the top teams. And for more on exchanges, we send it down to a former rider, Max Parker.
So as we're starting, guys, to get closer to around lap 10 and then in this range of 10 to 15, 20, that's where we're going to start seeing the first sets come to an end. What that means essentially is riders who are starting the race on the bike, they're starting to get close to exchanging, which is when we need to keep our eyes wide open for the race to heat up and something to happen. This is typically when the traffic comes out in the pit area. There's just a lot more nerves. The juice is brought up. So keep your eyes, as soon as we hit, we're at 11 now. As soon as we get to that 15 through 25 mark, keep your eyes wide open because you never know what can happen with the traffic and the nerves sky high.
The teams practice day in and day out here at the track. Once you have your pit position, you're looking at exchanging, working with other teams, and there's different lanes, Matt, within the track, which you have to make sure you obey by, so you avoid collisions. We saw that in last year's race towards the tail end around turn number 1. A failed exchange could really cost you the race.
If you watch F1 or NASCAR, imagine facilitating a pit stop on the middle of the roadway. That is absolutely what the case is with exchanges here. And the other key thing, I just mentioned drafting, you're going to want to follow other teams around you as they exchange. You want to use their effort to bring your rider in. So we'll see teams who are pitted next to each other start queuing off of each other and kind of following each other in. That'll happen throughout the rest of the race.
We just saw FiSci make an exchange, one of the top teams historically, but needed that 3rd attempt to qualify, so they qualified 27th. So they crossed the finish line for the line first after 12 laps, and the rider will get back on the bike. And after lucky 13, it's Sigma Nu out in front, qualified 9th. Won it 3 times, 5th in team pursuit. They won it back in 1990, so it's been 35 years, 4th in spring series, and they have said, quote, they have a legit shot to win it all, and Jeff Raley has been a finalist in Missing Out, a bracket-style spring series competition the past 2 years.
Missing Out is one of the best proxies for individual fitness in the race. It's something where you have to cross the line not last each lap, so the last rider is disqualified. And if you can kind of get through that 6 or 7 or 8 lap gauntlet on top, you are one of the best riders in the race.
Think of it as your March Madness style for individual riders. You start with 6 or 7, depending on 6, 7, 8, potentially more, and then eventually you whittle your way down. And there was the final consists of 6 riders. It ended up being won by Luke Noss with Judah Thompson, Isaac Baker, Billy Gregory, Jeff Raley, and Matthew Noss. So 2 SAE riders and 2 Sigma Nu riders, 2 Cutters riders in that final 6. It's a good way to show the depth and the perseverance and energy you have to expend, and you have to be willing to, be mindful of how much energy you're expending on each lap.
We're seeing 3PH come in for an exchange here, and look at SAE follow 3PH in, start queuing off them like I mentioned just a few laps ago, and suddenly SAE is off the front, let's say 20 bike lengths ahead of the lead.
JT Underhill, the captain in his 2nd year, finished 36 in individual time trials. ITTs, you have 4 riders start at each corner of the track. You each go 4 times around. The times this year much stronger from last year. There are a ton of returning riders in this race, and you see SAE has a 2nd or so lead over the rest of the pack. 10 minutes into the race, this will be lap number 16, and it's still SAE in front.
We saw SAE get a little excited there following that 3PH burn in. Either this is a good manifestation of a lesson learned from them from last year, getting back to the pack after they had been out front, or they're just trying to get teams used to them being out in the front. Expect them to continue to be kind of chaotic and pushy throughout the race.
Sigma Nu coming around, they're getting ready for an exchange, so this is where a rider burns, and we'll see Forrest right there as well. Will Bridgewater for Forrest will hop on the bike for the dorm team. And this is where you have to be careful, and you can see the bikes are lined up in separate lanes. And we'll see Sigma Nu make the exchange. Raley off the bike, and Isaac Baker, a sophomore in his 2nd race, on the bike. Sigma Nu returns 3 or 4 riders from last year.
And a great exchange is really enabling your next rider hopping on the bike to just slot right back into the pack. So we're going to see teams facilitate what's called a burn, where they kind of get ahead of the pack and then exchange that bike back to their rider in a way that lets them slot back in, kind of minimize the energy needed to get them back on the track.
Over on the backstretch, Sig Epp makes an exchange. Rohan Schluber, a sophomore in his 1st race, hops on the bike. Here is now Forrest going to make that exchange after they took an extra lap. Bridgewater, the sophomore, is on. They returned 3 or 4 riders from last year, finished tied for 7th in spring series, which is a collection of points gained via Missing Out, ITTs, and team pursuit. Qualifications does not count overall towards spring series, but Matt, we've talked about this. Different teams have different mindsets going into spring series. Some don't take it seriously at all. Some kind of just train right through it, and others really use that as a marking stick.
I don't want to say it's like the NBA regular season, but I guess I just did actually. So it's, a lot of these teams, they want to train all the way through to this race. This is what they're orienting their training plan around. Certainly a lot of teams will still take spring series seriously. It's where they get a lot of credibility amongst their peers and amongst their classmates, but ultimately this is the race that matters the most, and teams train accordingly.
19 laps gone here on the Little 500, 200 laps total. It's a quarter-mile track, so that means 50 miles total for these riders. You have to make at least 10 exchanges as a team, most with teams of 4, as we are seeing Macro Cycling getting ready for an exchange. They were part of that early crash early on. Ryan Roop, the sophomore, has the bike and has his hand up, getting ready for an exchange. This is a bike-to-bike exchange around turn number 4. And well done. You tap the wrist of your partner. Connor Furlong, the junior, is off, and the sophomore Roop is on.
Austin, we saw the race stretch out there for a few laps as these teams executed their first exchanges. Now we're seeing it slow down again, and oftentimes when it's slow, you go. So I expect there would be some fireworks in the next few laps as teams start thinking about what their next exchange might look like or how they kind of want to maybe slim down this field that still has, it looks like, about 25 riders or so in it.
Yeah, 20 laps down, the top three right now, Sigma Nu, Forrest, and Chi Alpha. Forrest, Chi Alpha right next to each other, 5th and 6th in quals. Chi Alpha finished 3rd in 1960, tied for 7th with Forrest in Spring Series. They have 3 freshmen in this race. Trey Samus is the lone returner and the captain of the race, did not participate in ITTs, and it's still Sigma Nu and Forrest as the top 2, and the cream and crimson jersey of Chi Alpha in 3rd. Chi Alpha, you know, a great story here. They had a failed summer of recruiting. They lost a ton of riders from last year. The team was in serious jeopardy all the way to now finishing 7th in Spring Series. Their first ride together as a team, Matt, was in October,
That
which is
incredible.
incredible.
Unbelievable, especially from a team cohesion standpoint, to be able to kind of come together and then convert that into a successful showing at Spring Series makes them one of the most noted teams today in the field.
There are a lot of these teams that, you know, are one phone call away from completely disbanding. You know, you lose 2 or 3 riders from last year due to graduation. You know, some guys go abroad in the spring semester, so obviously you can't race. There's a few guys that went abroad last year, now are back on the bikes for this year. And you start in October, you are way behind the rest of the field because a lot of these guys are training year-round. You know, tomorrow they'll get back on the bike and prepare for next year.
Maybe not tomorrow
Well,
quite
yeah.
yet, Austin, but your sentiment certainly stands. This is something that these riders live the race, and so this isn't something that they just do every now and then. And ultimately, I think, you know, we're seeing some of that kind of play out today. We saw some kind of random aggressive laps early on. Now we're kind of settling back in. It seems like teams are kind of getting their feet underneath them in this race.
23 laps down now in the 200-lap race. It is Chi Alpha, Leo Polidori in front. The freshman finished 26th in individual time trials. He's out in front, and now he is getting passed by Human Wheels. Finished 11th in qualifications. It's Owen Teed, the senior who was on the bike in his 3rd race, finished 8th in ITTs. His sister Abby has won previous races with Melanzana and another team training through Spring Series. There were a ton of track closures, the weather this semester. Matt, I know you live out in Denver, so you don't necessarily have all the rain. It's more snow for you, but a lot of bad weather, a lot of indoor rides, and a lot of limited track times for each of these teams.
Well, the reason I moved out west is because I had to deal with 4 winters in Bloomington, and that was about 3 too many, honestly. So I completely empathize, Austin. I was a big inside rider. My teammates who are watching, I'm sure, are already texting me, giving me grief about that. But frankly, you got to find a way to get the hours in, and sometimes being inside in your bike room on the trainer is the best way to do that.
We have the ticker now up for you. It's Fiji at the top, SAE, Cutters, Fidel, Blackie Bulls, Chi Alpha, Human Wheels, Sigma Nu, Forest Cycling, and Delta Tau Delta as the top 10 at the moment in this 33-team field. 22 of the teams are within 2 seconds of the top. And now 25 laps down, we're an 1/8 of the way through, and it's IUDM out in front. Another great story, the Indiana University Dance Marathon. Matt, if you remember last year, they were the lucky loser, as I like to say. The late entry into the race, there was Beta Theta Pi, failed to meet rookie week requirements, and on the Monday of race week, they got a call from race director Emily Carrico that they were in the race, had a little more time this year to prepare.
You already talked about March Madness. I'm glad they got to go dancing 2 years in a row now.
So IUDM out in front.
We're seeing SAE and Cutters kind of trade half-lap pulls off the front. When it's this slow, that doesn't hurt you too much, but it's curious to see 2 of the strongest teams in the race on the front. Austin, I got a fun little fact for you talking to some of the SAE alums here. Their fastest lap in the last 3 races in 2022, 23, and 24 was in the first 20 laps, actually. So in a 200-lap race, it seems like they're really metering their effort a bit more efficiently this year and hoping to have that fastest lap occur much later in the race when it's really needed.
Their fastest lap right now is 35.56 seconds. Their last lap was at 41 seconds,
Wow.
just for comparison. And that is Phi-Sci out in front at the moment after 27 laps, and SAE with a 35.5 second time, so just beat their previous best. 27 laps in to this race. And you're already seeing the pack start to expand a little bit. SAE in front now, ahead of Phi-Sci. Went for an exchange. Cutters is right there. Phi Delt, Sigma Nu, all in there, all qualified in the top 12 or so. Although, as we mentioned, qualifications not always the best time. You know, you get 4 laps, you got to complete 3 successful exchanges. And obviously, with how deep this field has gotten the past few years, you know, not every team is going to qualify if you do put a time down, but just making sure you get it right and not having to go to that 3rd qualification attempt like Phi-Sci did is always for the best.
Beyond nerve-wracking to be on your 3rd attempt there, and wow, we're really seeing the pack here kind of do what I call as the slinky effect. We're seeing it kind of spread out, get to about 5 or 6 bike lengths, just 1 bike at a time, and then kind of come together again. Not only is that when crashes can occur, but also you know, you can kind of lose your place in the pack and forget exactly where you're at. So important to stay focused here, especially as we kind of enter this 2nd exchange sequence.
With 172 laps to go, it is SAE out in front, but now we'll toss it to an ad from Go Bloomington.
Welcome back to an episode of Hoosier Carpool Karaoke. I'm Allison.
Hi, Gloria. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Evelyn. And we're so excited to be here today.
Back here, shout out to the Carpool Karaoke, always a favorite here around Bloomington, as now Chi Alpha has darted out in front with Human Wheels chasing close behind. Phi Delt is in there as well, the top 3. You see those 2 marking. As always, when you see a rider go out in front of the pack and go for an exchange, a few teams will mark to make sure there's not a move being made. 2 of them making exchanges. Human Wheels and Chi Alpha both on the back stretch make an exchange. And Phi Delta is moving along here. They will make one as well.
Great exchange by Chi Alpha. They're going to be able to slot right back into the pack here, and pretty much the same for Phi Delta as well. They have about a straight lead. We'll be able to slot right back in. Great call out on marking, Austin. That's exactly what we just saw.
Thomas Rising off the bike. Quinn Peterson is on the bike. 2 of 3 seniors on the team, all in their 3rd race. Drew Miller is the 3rd. They have Charlie Ernst as a junior as well. They said their spring series was, quote, pretty disappointing in that they're training for today, April the 26th, and not anything else. They feel that they have a chip on their shoulder with the rigorous training, and they lean on alums a ton as a reset button. You know, these guys go through training day in and day out for months and months and months. They take spring break trips, they take winter break trips, and the alums are such an important way for these guys to just lean on for advice, for motivation. It's a mental battle, Matt, just as much as it is physically demanding.
It absolutely, like I said earlier, these teams and these riders, they live the race, from nutrition to sleep to how they prioritize their schoolwork and kind of squeeze that in between their training sessions. Alums certainly make that more accomplishable. They add the experience, they add the mentorship, and sometimes the money as well to kind of fund and make the purchases needed to have a successful training session as well as a successful race.
We're seeing Blackie Bulls getting ready for an exchange. SAE just put out a rider as well. Those pit boxes right next to each other, and 3PH is in there as well. This could be interesting. We'll see Paul Lee get on the bike. That's successful in both 3PH and SAE, although the 3PH rider nearly got in the way of the SAE rider. Rhett Skavarna. SAE returns all 4 riders from last year. Luke Noss, his younger brother Matthew, Lucas Lemmy, and Rhett Skavarna, one of just 4 teams in this race that return all 4 riders from race day a year ago.
It can be really hard to burn off the front, like we just saw SAE and Cutters, Cutters coming in now, SAE and BKB facilitate. We'll have to see if teams want to punish them for this. It's going to be something to keep an eye on.
Blackie Bulls, SAE, 3PH, the top 3 teams in quals, currently sitting as the top 3 after a 33.5-second lap from BKB on that exchange. Fiji out in front, Sigma Nu, Phi Delta Theta, Delts, Human Wheels, Force Cycling, Chi Alpha, Cutters, Grey Goat, an independent team. funded out of Indianapolis, and Phi-Side, the top 10 at the moment after 34 laps. Fiji making an exchange. Walker Kite gets off the bike for Cuddy Beresheim, who raced 2 years ago. An example of a guy who went abroad last year, is back now. So they have all second guys who have a race under their belt, but not all of them race together. So having that chemistry matters so much more.
So much more, especially just being comfortable in the pack with 20 other bikes around you, being able to maneuver, stay calm, understand your race strategy, and execute it, all important.
35 laps gone here in the 2025 Men's Little 500 here at Bill Armstrong Stadium, alongside former Jet Black rider Matt McCoy, our entire crew working around the clock. I am Austin Platt. Thanks for joining us. A phenomenal women's race yesterday, won in a sprint finish by Kappa Alpha Theta for their 10th all-time win, the first women's team to get to double-digit wins, hoping for a similar exciting finish today, as it's BKB in front right now of the main pack. There are currently 20 teams within 3.5 seconds of the lead after 36 laps.
Starting to see teams really cycle through all of their riders. Some riders, if you're a sprinter, you just want to do one set and then kind of get back into the race and wait for the sprint. Other teams, they want to kind of keep their top riders fresh, kind of taking turns throughout. I expect that most teams will want to kind of give each rider an opportunity at the start of the race to get their legs underneath them, and I think that's what we're seeing right now with this set of exchanges.
That's IUDM out in front. They just started ahead of Blackhea Bulls, who currently have Paul Lee on the bike. He raced 2 years ago with 3PH, but when you change teams, Matt, you have to take a year off. Kind of like a transfer portal. I hate to use that word now that the transfer portal is officially closed in basketball, but obviously if you do want to switch teams, you do have to take a year off. But as I mentioned beforehand in the video pre-race, BKB, a deep team, and Paul Lee, a great addition to the team that already won last year. Cutters is out in front. SAE, BKB, Chi Alpha, and Delts, the top 5 at the moment. Those were the top 5 teams as well in Team Pursuit, which is the final of the 3 Spring Series events. You get 15 laps as a team, and you can start with 4. You have to have 3 riders at the end, and it's that third rider's time that ends up being the difference. And in Team Pursuit, the top 2 go to the championship. It was Cutters, SAE, and Blackhea Bulls, all separated by just 6 seconds. SAE edged out BKB by less than a second, and then Cutters took it home over SAE, a 9-minute and 15-second Team Pursuit time in the finale. It was a great finish between Cutters and SAE.
Team Pursuit's perhaps the most illustrative of total team strength of all the Spring Series events. As you said, Austin, 3 riders have to finish together in order to score a time, and that really necessitates a team approach. And overall, Team Pursuit is a phenomenal proxy for race day performance.
After 39 laps, it's Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Blackhea Bulls, and Cutters. SAE, the most laps led last year, could not win the race. They tried to go out front and were eventually caught. And we'll see if they do save Luke Noss's legs for the very end. It's currently Red Skavarna on right now.
Still seeing a lot of the top teams at the front of the pack here. Of course, that's needed to stay safe, but it's curious to see teams like Cutters and BKB and SAE just trade half-lap pulls here. You'd think maybe they'd want to come back and let some other teams do some of the work on the front, but again, each team's going to prioritize safety and, of course, speed of the actual pack in how they make decisions about pulling through in the front.
It's BKB, Cutters, and SAE, the top 3 teams after 40 laps. For more on winning combinations, we send it down to Riley Woodall.
Hey, thanks, AP. Yeah, let's talk winning combos in the history of the Little 500. The pole sitter has had the most wins in Little 500 history. No surprise there, 13 in race history. 3 of the last 6 winners have started in first. Cutters won all 3 of those. Second has seen 10 winners in Little 5 history. 44 of the 73 winners of the Little 500 qualified top 5. There have only been 9 wins that have come outside the top 10. BKB, the defending champions today, their first ever pole start. They've won from 2nd, 3rd, and 8th. Let's talk about some other contenders today as well. Cutters, they qualified 12th. No team has won from the 12th position. SAE qualified second. They're looking for their first Little 500 win since 1963. It'd be their second ever as a team. 3PH, a team that's come out of nowhere. They started third today. They have not won the Little 5 ever, so they're looking for their first win today in 2025. And Siget, who started fourth today, they are looking for their fourth win as a team, their first since 2015. AP, Matt?
Got all of that down at home. There will be a quiz at the end. I do have one prepared, but thanks for that. 12, I guess, is an unlucky number. You think 13 is the unlucky number, but I guess no one as well from the 12th position.
Austin, I'm surprised you want more quizzes. I thought it was finals week.
Next week. This is dead week. This is where there's not a lot of work going on, so I can slip one. And it can serve as extra credit for those of you who are a little bit behind in your academics. It's like the Kentucky Derby. The 17 horse has never won. I pick the 17 horse to win every year. It never happens.
How do you know these things?
You read like Sports Illustrated kids growing up. You learn some weird things, and you remember some strange things growing up. After 43 laps, it's Phi-Psi, SAE, and Blackhea Bulls. We're here for the 74th running of the men's Little 500 here at Bill Armstrong Stadium on Jerry Yeagley Field in Bloomington on the campus of Indiana University in Bloomington, known as the world's greatest college weekend. It's the largest intramural sporting event on the IU campus, the largest collegiate bike race in the U.S. The race was founded by Howdy Wilcox Jr., the executive director of the IU Foundation, who modeled the race after the Indianapolis 500, which his father won in 1919. All of the money raised, the IU Foundation, the IU Student Foundation, do a phenomenal job setting this event up. All the money raised goes towards a scholarship fund for working IU students. It goes to a great cause, and for as much as there's blood, sweat, and tears being expended on the bike, everyone knows this is something bigger than yourself.
And it's phenomenal to bike in a race that's been facilitated 73 times previously. You truly feel like you're a part of history. I love walking by the kind of Kelly building in Wells, thinking about the old stadium and all the alumni who are used to that being kind of the mecca of Little 500 now at Bill Armstrong. Certainly one of the reasons that a lot of these riders participated in the race.
After 45 laps, Godspeed takes the lead as they were exchanging. One of four teams in this race, as I mentioned, returning all four riders. They have twin brothers, Evan and Bryce Jobe, are sprinters, and they represent the St. Paul Catholic Center and the Catholic community right behind Bill Armstrong Stadium. Sean Coleman and Liam McDonald are the other two riders. Another one of the independent teams now making their names heard as they took the lead and are currently second after 46 laps. SAE out in front. Blackhea Bulls is third. Cutters fourth. Sigma Phi Epsilon fifth. Americana, another independent team which was revitalized a few years ago. Phi Kappa Psi seventh. Chi Alpha eighth. Delts is ninth. And Phi Delta Theta 10th. After 46 laps, half an hour in here to this 2025 men's Little 500.
46 laps in, still 24 teams on the lead lap. That's quite a lot. I'd expect that by about lap 150, we'll say that number will whittle down to about 7 to 10 teams on the lead lap. So expect a lot of fireworks in that time frame over the next 100 laps or so.
Americana is going for an exchange, and they crossed the line first after 47 laps. Have a few returners from last year, Preston Fonseca and Tyler Strantz. Finished 19th in Spring Series, or 32nd in Team Pursuit. Never won the race, finished 8th in 1989, and last year they finished in last after qualifying 28th. And it's now, these past few years, Matt, with the number of teams and the competitiveness in this field, getting to race day and putting your name in this race is such an accomplishment, within itself. I know every team wants to go out and win, but just recognizing that racing here on race day, everyone's a champion in the hearts and the minds of all these fans watching.
Each of these riders has thought about this day at least 5, 10, 50 hours in training, and a lot of the time you're watching previous races, trying to put yourself in those situations, try to mentally prepare. So to come out here on race day and actually give it your all is well worth it, and certainly something that these riders will remember for the rest of their lives.
Did you ever lose sleep thinking about riding the Little 500 at all?
I definitely did. I was personally a little worried that I wasn't going to make our team. You know, something we haven't talked about, some of these teams go 6, 7, 8 riders deep. Just making your team's race day team is an accomplishment in its own right. Some of these teams have more competition within their teams than outside of their teams. So for me, Austin, it was thinking about how do I make our race day team and ultimately help contribute. Kind of the cream rises to the top. So a lot of these teams are truly putting their best 4 riders into position today.
After 49 laps, it's Fiji out in front. MJ Cancilla, a sophomore, on the bike right now. All second-year riders. They finished 6th in team pursuits. Last year they finished 15th. They won the race back in 1995, have won it 6 times. They said they had not the best time with team pursuits, even though they did finish 6th. And there is, a collision in, it looks like ASIG's pit box, but they get their rider back on. Carson Heath gets on the bike. Ethan Best, a little bit of a tumble, but he gets back safely, shaking his head. But the rest of the field avoids that mess.
And we're starting to see it, Austin. Teams are starting to get a little tired, starting to get a little, not as sharp as they have been. And I think ultimately this will contribute to some chaoticness that will kind of thin down this pack a little bit over the next 1 or 2 exchange sequences.
When do you, as a rider, did you feel the fatigue really start to feel with your legs?
Honestly, I mentioned earlier, you taper so hard ahead of this race that usually it's not even within the first set. Usually it's the second or third set where you really start hurting. Most of the coaches are going to manage their riders' kind of pain tolerance and fitness. They'll get their riders out before they really start hurting, especially in the first set or 2. I'd expect that we'd see a lot more pain faces after lap 140 or so.
It's Grey Goat after 51 laps in front. Grey Goat, another independent team sponsored by an Indianapolis area bike shop. They're the 3rd longest running independent team, and their captain, Sam Hickson, one of just 2 riders in this race that has raced all 4 years. The other one is the top rider in the field, and Luke Noss, but it is so rare to ride your freshman year and carry that through senior year. Colton Seiler gets on the bike for Grey Goat. Davis Greenberg hops off. It's Grey Goat out in front. Delta Sigma Pi accumulated a 3-second penalty. We saw a penalty in yesterday's race from Theta. Didn't end up mattering. They won, but you can have those 3-second penalties for various exchange falters. And that's what we saw right there.
And unlike F1, you do not serve your penalty in your pit. You actually have to come to the start finish and stop your bike, wait your allotted time penalty, and then get going again. So it's actually even more hurtful than a traditional race.
Yeah, think of it as a penalty box in hockey, where you're quickly in there and quickly out of there. Referee opens the door and says, okay, now get back out of there after a few seconds. Looks like an exchange is going to be made by Delta Tau Delta. That is Delts. 4th in team pursuit, 14th in qualifications. A team that told me they didn't care about spring series whatsoever. The rider last year, Josh Herbst, rode in 4 races, was one of few guys to do that. They feel this year the target is off their back a little bit without Josh.
And that was a great burn by Blake, and I know the team this year is really looking forward to maybe not being as marked as they have been in the past with Josh in the fold. You know, the top teams, your BKBs, your SAEs, your cutters, every team knows their jersey. Every team has that memorized. Sometimes kind of being more on the periphery or in that kind of second or third tier actually enables you to be more aggressive and stay true to what's going to help you be successful on race day. I think not only Delts, but a couple other teams, SIGAP, Sigma Nu, etc., can all benefit from that kind of marking.
Jack Lloyd, a senior and a captain, is on the bike for Delts at the moment. Jack was the student coach for DG last year, and he said he's replacing great with Ben Nordstrom, the 4th rider. As we mentioned, Jack Sturgey unable to race even as the team submit their final 4 riders on Sunday. There are injuries that do happen across the week, and if you do get approval from race director Peter Schultz in his first year getting the job, former football player, and he's done a great job obviously getting this stage ready and the scene set for race day both yesterday and today. Doing a great job, but it's Ben Nordstrom in that spot. And even though teams think they had their final 4, obviously in final preparations things can happen.
There's always something, Austin, as you know.
Jack said he dislocated his knee, and the pain was infinitely bad on Tuesday, and just the inflammation was too much. So unfortunately he could not race, but he'll have a few more races in the future to look forward to. After 55 laps, it's Phi-Sci Macro Cycling Delta Sigma Pi currently in there in the top 3 with SAE and BKB 4th and 5th. Macro Cycling in the race last year finished 8th. Return a few riders, Andrew Flynn and Connor Furlong, and brought along 2 sophomores as well. As you mentioned, these teams go deep, and even riders that don't make race day are training with the team year-round and years before, and still gain plenty of knowledge. Not quite race day experience, but still being there around the team makes a big difference as you go into that next year, knowing you have a pretty good shot to make the Final Four.
You know, a rising tide raises all ships, Austin. I think a lot of these teams who have those deep kind of riders, they're competing with each other. They're all looking at each other's ITTs. A lot of these riders will also race on the road together outside of a track circumstance as well. So lots of ways to get that race experience to ultimately help you prepare both physically and mentally for race day.
Will Bridgewater on the bike for Forrest. Jason Kemp hops off for the team in all orange in the first pit box after the start-finish line. 57 laps in the books. Faisai, Macro, and Forrest cycling the top 3 with SAE and Grey Goat. Blackie Bulls, Godspeed, Siget, Cutters, Fiji, Fidel, 3PH, Human Wheels, Chi Alpha, Sigma Nu, Chinzano, Delts, ASIG, Americana, AKL, Chi-Fi, IUDM, AK Psi, Delta Sigma Pi, Novus, Bears, CSF, Pike, Theta Chi, Phi Sigma Kappa, Beta Theta Pi, TEP, and Army cycling the top 33 as it goes from first to last at the moment. 58 laps gone, 38 minutes elapsed.
So Austin, we talked earlier about teams queuing off each other, especially BKB and SAE. We're about to see the same thing. BKB did not have a fantastic burn here. They weren't able to surprise the other team, so they've kind of dragged the rest of the field forward here. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Sig Ep and some of the other teams might do here if they maybe want to fake an exchange or do something similar. We'll have to see.
Paul Lee hands the bike to Will Wagner, and Brett Scavarna hops off the bike, and Lucas Lemmy is on for SAE. After 59 laps, nearly 40 minutes gone here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. That lap from Blackie Bulls, 31.25 seconds on the burn. SAE, 32.7 seconds. So obviously trying to get well out in front of the field, because it takes 6-7 seconds even more to get back into the field and back at full speed.
That's a screaming fast lap time, Austin, and a lot of that can be contributed to just this is their first set. These teams are feeling very fresh, and so some of these burns are going to almost be overkill in some ways from what we'll see later in the race in terms of lap times.
Karem Keskin off the bike for Cutters. Jake Zarev on the bike. Karem, a senior in his first race, but Cutters returns. Obviously mentioned Judah Thompson, second best rider according to ITTs, Billy Gregory, and Zarev from last year's team, which obviously finished second just behind Blackie Bulls. We're seeing 3PH getting ready for an exchange here as well, with 60 laps gone, 140 left here in the men's Little 500, all part of the world's greatest college weekend. Judah Nickel, the freshman, going to give way to Nathan Imlay, the sophomore. That's a pretty good exchange, and he'll hop back on the bike. He looks over his left shoulder, and we'll get back into the pack with BKB right behind them. Faisai, 3PH, Macro Cycling, IUDM, and BKB, the top 5 at the moment. 61 laps gone, 40 minutes in the books here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. The wind, as we've mentioned, Matt, is definitely going to play a factor. We've seen some gusts, but it's kind of really blowing from the north, which could make turn 1 really much of an issue, and considering the top teams are there exchanging, could be tough for them to get back into the swing of things.
And good for the teams who are kind of more insulated here. And I'm taking a look at Faisai. Faisai is very far ahead of the field right now. They are exchanging, so a new rider coming on. We'll have to see if they go back to the pack. But just like Faisai just kind of faked an exchange and got some extra speed and kind of distance from the pack, we might see some of the other teams do this. You know what, Austin? Faisai is actually staying out. This new rider coming on, we'll have to get his number and look him up here in a moment. He is actually cranking off the front. So they have about a straightaway lead on the field, and this will start some of the chaos in terms of who wants to actually pull them in. It's always a cat and mouse game in the field.
Yeah, it's Hunter Jones, the junior, on the bike right now. And as we continue on, obviously the race conditions and the track conditions are going to move around as the laps continue. And for more on that, we send it down to Max Parker.
Hey guys, we're bringing you trackside here just to get a little bit of insight into what we're working with right now. So as the air dries up a little bit and the rain kind of comes out, the track gets drier and drier. So we can take a peek here and just pan in and take a look at what the track actually looks like and just how tight the pack is, how close some of these riders hug the inside line. Man, that gets awfully tight, and that's where you can find a couple trouble spots here, but these riders doing a great job navigating it right now. But again, as the track dries up, watch that as more dust kicks into the air. Again, that's where the fun begins.
Nice side, thanks a lot, Max. Out in front, a 12.5-second lead after lap number 64. I believe it's still Hunter Jones out there on the bike for Phi-Sci. Obviously a historic team. And he is cruising along, lap number 65 in the books. That one at 37.7 seconds, and he's got basically a straightaway lead, Matt, over the rest of the field at the moment. And looking at that pit box for Phi-Sci, no one's out there.
And if you haven't watched Little 500 before, the name of the game in this kind of strategy this early is trying to lap the field, make the field have to unlap themselves. We've seen in the last 3 years, 3 different teams try this. SIGAP in 2023, SAE last year, Phi-Sci potentially trying to do this year. They were able to actually accomplish this in 2021. It's very early to do this, but if you're a team who's not marked with nothing to lose, why not go for this? This is oftentimes the only way that lapping the field works, is if the other teams, especially the contenders, don't expect it.
Yeah, they tried it in 2021. They lapped the field but got crashed out, and it was Jet Black, the team you formerly rode for, Matt, that ended up winning it in a crazy finish. And now everyone's trying to play catch up. After lap 66, it's a 15.5-second lead for Phi-Sci. We've seen this in the past. You mentioned that the biggest thing is you want to try and limit the number of exchanges. The cliche is you have a matchbox and you don't want to burn all your matches early. This is what SAE tried last year. As you mentioned, it didn't work out, but Jones is still moving along.
And it's kind of a balance. If a team is out front burning matches, as you just said, well, teams are going to have to burn matches to catch them, but they don't want to have to do all of the work. So we're going to have to see if the chase pack here can kind of work together and how collaborative they want to be. This early in the race, I don't expect that they will be putting too much juice into this Phi-Sci move, especially until they get to at least maybe a 3/4 lap lead.
Sigma Nu is currently second, Forrest third, SAE fourth, and BKB fifth. Everyone is catching Phi-Sci at the moment. You remember, everyone who's watched this race knows the name Laval, Andrew Laval, obviously a historic rider who couldn't end up winning the race. He raced with his brother as well, and they had some, late lap, exchanges that, didn't go their way. But obviously Phi-Sci this year, not a team that we didn't really think of as much, but when you have to go for that third qualification attempt, knowing you can't fail, you worry about just getting the little things right and not as much worrying about the time.
Of course, their sister Audrey was able to win the race with Theta last year, so they were able to get one under the Lavelle belt. And good to see Phi-Sci actually exchange here. It's starting to kind of pull back in. They only have a straightaway lead now. We'll have to see if they continue to go for this effort, especially since they've already invested a lot of energy and time into it. But I expect that the field will ultimately catch them here in the next 10 to 15 laps or so.
It's Albert Schaefer, the senior, and the captain in his third race. Did not participate in ITTs, but he is on right now, and that gap is really shortening as he takes a look over his shoulder heading into turn one. And the lead after 69 laps is just 7.5 seconds. So it came down all the way from 17 seconds. And Schaefer, although he is still in front, knows that the rest of the pack is going to catch up. They qualified on their third attempt, Phi-Sci. Albert was a cross-country runner in high school, was injured last year. And a lot of these guys, swam, or I should say, participate in other sports. Parker Etnai, a freshman whose brother Carson rode for Phi-Sci and her sister Lauren rode for Melanzana. He swam in high school, and Hunter Jones played soccer. So a lot of these guys, former athletes that just want to pick up that competitiveness and end up picking up cycling.
I've seen football players, lacrosse players, swimmers all adapt to Little 500, each of them with their own different skill sets and kind of background, giving them an edge in a different way on the track. That's what's great about cycling, is that it's not a sport that a lot of people do growing up before you're 18 and come to Indiana. So oftentimes that leads to quite the diversity of thought and experience, and typically a more dynamic race.
Take a look at the lead pack, very much catching up to Schaefer here and Phi-Sci. And now we'll see a pair of teams getting ready for exchanges as we are 70 laps through, 130 to go here in the Little 500. Chi Alpha is getting ready for an exchange on the back straightaway, and there goes Delt's gonna burn as well. Jack Lloyd is gonna finish up this set. So it's Delt's now in front after a 37-second lap. BKB, Chinzano, Chi Alpha, and Cutters, the top 5 at the moment, and we'll see Lloyd hand the bike off. It's a bike-to-bike exchange in the back stretch.
Interesting that the leaders really follow Jack there. I think ultimately this is a kind of period in the race where the pack is trying to recalibrate and kind of come back together, especially after catching Feiside there. Oftentimes when a team is off the front and then you do catch them, the counterattack is more effective than the actual attack, just like we saw with BKB last year. So maybe not this Feiside move, but future moves will definitely have to keep an eye on how people want to approach the counterattack, as perhaps that's how the race will be won today.
John Peterson gets on the bike for Delts. Chinzano and Chi Alpha both made exchanges as well. Mal Brito, the top rider for Chinzano, 4th in individual time trials, is on the bike. Novus Cycling picked up a 2-second penalty, so penalties can range from a few seconds, and there's some bigger 5-10 second penalties, which are rare, but obviously avoiding penalties at all costs will keep you in the race. After 73 laps, it's Human Wheels, SAE, Cutters, Blackie Bulls, and Godspeed. The top 5 right now. Human Wheels led by Owen Teed. He is on the bike right now. Finished 8th in individual time trials. Told me top 10 is the goal this year. Their best finish was last year, 11th in team history, but want to keep the first 100 laps clean and minimize mistakes. And some of those guys dealt with injuries. Tyler Utterback, a sophomore, broke his collarbone in the fall. Davis Falcon had an operation on his knee. So these guys go through it in the fall and the spring, but you still try and fight your way all the way to race day. Chinzano going for a burn here. SAE and Cutters chasing behind them with Blackie Bulls as well. Chinzano on that back straightaway. And this looks like it's a +1, as you like to say, or more, Matt. You know, signaling that maybe you want to go for an exchange in that burn lap. But as you mentioned this year, this is field so much more reactive to what other teams want to do.
And I think a big part of that, Austin, is we're starting to get into these riders' second sets. Some of the riders on the field now have already either started the race or gotten a quick set in. And so we're going to start seeing more and more of this kind of cat and mouse reactive statistics, you know, come into play as teams try to kind of execute on this strategy and ultimately pull away and try to make the other teams work a bit more.
We just saw Chinzano serve that penalty. For more on the team that was in front a few moments ago, Feiside, we send it down to Kara Adams.
Thanks, Gus. Austin, I want to talk about this Feiside team. Obviously, we know what happened at Quals. It was on their 3rd attempt, so they finished 27th, which for them is a pretty rare thing to happen. But you got to give them credit. They're really hanging in the middle of the pack today. They have experience, and we know historically they're one of the strongest teams in the field. So I'm curious to see how they continue out as we go past the 75th lap, guys.
Thanks a lot, Kara. That 27th place in qualification, their lowest since 2012. Very rare for a historic team like that, which has won this race 7 times, last in 1978, to be that low. But as we've said, qualifications is only temporary in this race. Forrest is now getting ready for an exchange. We're 76 laps gone. It's 3PH out in front. JT Underhill, their captain, hopped on the bike. Now we'll see Forrest do the same thing. Epic drone shot here. Great work by our entire crew. Taking a look at the scene here inside Bill Armstrong Stadium. Will Bridgewater on the bike, Joseph Grimes off the bike. And Jake Zarev is on for Cutters as well. Replacing Billy Gregory replacing him.
So we saw John Peterson from Delta Tau Delta kind of do a +1, Austin, after he exchanged, kind of get off the front. Now we're seeing BKB come in for an exchange, and John is following this burn all the way through. This is really going to spread out the field here. I'd be surprised if they weren't lapping times faster than 33 seconds. Curious that John would stay off the front like this. I think maybe some of the contenders are trying to, you know, kind of thin the herd a little bit and get to a more down-selected pack.
Zach Villarreal, a junior in his first race, gets on the bike, replacing the captain in Will Wagner, who finished off last year's race, finished 3rd this year in ITTs. I mentioned that you know, basically a team had to start over again. You know, you can win, you know, in a previous year, but, you know, with guys graduating and whatnot, you basically got to scrap everything you've done, and mentioned that he's realized the Little Five community is so much more than this race, joining obviously the large pool of former winners and all the support that he got. He mentioned as he was doing his victory lap, other guys were still riding. He was getting congratulations from many people, pats on the back, and this Little Five community is so much more than race day, something that a casual viewer, Matt, may not understand.
Definitely not, Austin. And, you know, I think a key thing to understand is that these riders, especially in the middle of the race here, they're warmed up, but there's things that you can be doing now to prevent you from collapsing on lap 180. You have to continue to hydrate, you have to continue to eat, you have to make sure that you're ready to go, put on sunscreen, things like that, stay warm, especially as we enter kind of the middle of the race where things start getting a little more hectic.
21 teams on the lead lap right now, 79 now, 80 laps are in the books. It's SAE in front, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, who qualified second, followed by Delta Tau Delta, also known as Delts, and then Blackie Bulls, the winner from last year, BKB, who are on the pole for the very first time in their team's history. Their first year was in 2006. They finished in the top 10 every single year, which is just incredible for an independent team, and they've been on the podium 8 times, obviously winning it last year. Looks like Macro is going to get ready for an exchange here. Macro Cycling have a really good rider in Connor Furlong, and he gets off the bike and taps Ryan Roop, the sophomore, and he will get back towards the back of that pack as they watch SAE, Delts, and BKB. Oh, there's a crash around turn 1. Fidelt is in there. Forrest is in there. I think Cutters is in there too. They're going to get back on the bike. Fiji is in there. The white jersey of Sigep also in there.
Yellow flag comes out. Teams are going to have to hold their place with respect to the leaders in the track. Look at BKB.
They don't know. They're still racing at full speed here.
They don't have the yellow flag out.
Well, and now it's yellow flag.
And it's green again. No, it's still yellow,
it's still yellow, and now the guys recognize it. So the 3 teams were Delts, SAE, and BKB that didn't realize. Chi Alpha was there as well. You see now the skid marks around turn 1. We mentioned this was the turn where problems could arise, Matt, with the wind and with the precipitation of the track. We'll see a few teams make exchanges, but with the yellow flag out, teams have to maintain their positioning.
And it doesn't matter as much about passing under yellow, it's keeping your position in the track relative to the rest of the field. As you mentioned, Austin, we called out turn 1 earlier with the wind coming in from the north. As soon as you turn in on a cinder track, imagine like a very hard sand at the beach. Like imagine you fishtailing from that back wheel just like you see on the race monitor. You know, that's what really caused that wreck. And notice immediately, Delta Tau Delta, SAE, BKB, they hammered the front as we get the green flag again here. And they're going to try to keep this advantage and ultimately make the crash teams really work to catch up.
It was a Bears rider that was the first one to fall, and then just like dominoes, you have no choice but to just go down as well. So it's Delts, SAE, and BKB in front at the moment. Chi Alpha, Human Wheels, and 3PH, the top 6 at the moment. Luke Noss gets on the bike, and obviously when there is that yellow flag, it's a great time to exchange because you have to essentially maintain your positioning, and there's no pressure for a bad exchange.
And just like under Formula 1, where you're going slower, it actually costs you less to exchange.
So 84 laps in the books, BKB, Delts, SAE, the top 3. We really didn't have a big crash last year, kind of similar to that around turn 1. It was a pretty clean race. The first one around turn number 1, with the wind coming from turn 3 over on the north side, which you haven't been to Bill Armstrong Stadium, is near turn 3 to the right of the Jerry Tardy Center. Coming in from that way makes it harder around turn number 1 with that big headwind as you're trying to take that turn.
And Austin, the curious thing is of the maybe 8 to 9 contending teams, we have about 4 to 5 actually up front here. 3PH, Delta Tau Delta, BKB, Chi Alpha, and SAE. That's actually kind of a Goldilocks zone for what I'll call like a breakaway. You know, if you have more teams than that, then oftentimes they're not distributing the effort enough. If you have less teams, it might be hard to stay away. When you have 4 to 5 teams like that, you know, oftentimes that's kind of one of the winning moves. They'll be able to successfully work together. They'll want to work together because they're distancing themselves from that rest of that field.
Cutters has dropped to 9th, by the way. They're 14 seconds behind. Right now, there are 8 teams within 6 seconds of the lead, currently being set by SAE. As Matthew Noss crosses the line after the 86th lap, he'll give way to Chi Alpha, BKB, and Delts.
I will say, Austin, with a 38-second lap there, they are not hammering it at the front here. That's going to make it easier for cutters mainly to catch back up, but of course that takes a lot of effort to catch like this still, so still not a fantastic outcome for them.
Sigma Nu makes an exchange. Jeff Raley, one of the best riders in this field, gets back on the bike. Sigma Nu 14th after that. Forrest, Sigep, and Fidelt, who were all in the top 7 of quals, 15th, 16th, and 17th respectively. So, that crash didn't completely blow up the race, but has caused a few teams, including the cutters, they're going to have to work from behind, and they are well behind the Pacers right now.
And we'll see some of these teams, Austin, start working together. Note that I believe this is Sigep, Forrest, and Fidelt are working together here on the front stretch, trying to catch Sigma News, trying to catch cutters. Their problem, though, is the teams out front, Delta Tau Delta and SAE, they're actually working very collaboratively, taking these half-lap, full-lap pulls here, and that's going to help them stay away for as long as they can. We'll have to see how the next exchange sequence enables some of these teams to maybe either stay away or try to pull in this lead pack.
And it's Matthew Noss on this set for SAE. They told me they wanted to save up Luke Noss for the very end. They burned him out last year trying to pull away from the field. It's SAE, Chi Alpha, Delts, and BKB setting the pace right now. Alpha Sigma Phi is riding 5th. That is ASIG. They have never won the race, finished 8th in 1990, or 6th, however, in the spring series, which you obviously have to accumulate enough points to qualify for that. Not every team does that. SIGEP is a good example. They didn't even participate in team pursuit, thus did not have enough points for the spring series. But ASIG returns all 4 riders from last year. Now SAE and BKB both, well, nope. SAE's not going to. BKB is going to make an exchange. Zach Villarreal off the bike, and it's Wiley Close, the sophomore, who hops on. That's where you can see, noticing who's in front of you, maybe say, I don't want the exchange there.
And, suddenly Cutters is only about, 4 or 5 seconds behind BKB. So, sometimes actually exchanging helps the other teams catch up because they can kind of hop onto your rider who's coming onto the track and kind of tow them to the front.
And it's kind of where the Blackheath Bulls' pit is at the end of the straightaway. Teams who come around turn 4, you can see that and then start to recognize how much closer you are to the pack. It's SAE, Delts, 3PH, Chi Alpha, ASIG, BKB, Human Wheels, Cutters, Fiji, and FiSci as the top 10 right now, IUDM in 11th.
I think we're going to see Cutters finally pull in this lead pack here, so starting to solidify after that wreck. Still seeing other teams have to really try to catch up, but ultimately this is starting to slowly but surely come back together for the most part.
A burn for Sigma Nu. Isaac Baker on the bike. Jeff Raley hops off, and it's SAE
and here we go,
BKB
Austin.
Right now, and that is Luke Noss on the bike, being followed closely by Wiley Close, pun intended. His last name would tell you that.
And Austin, I said it earlier, the counterattack oftentimes is the most impactful move in the race. We saw as Cutters caught that lead pack, both SAE and BKB put some of their best riders on the track. Now we're seeing them work together, pull away from the field up front.
SAE, BKB, Cutters have gotten back into the fold, less than 3 seconds behind. BKB and SAE, the top 2, they had a little bit of a budding rivalry in spring series, which we've mentioned. The fan bases, and Will Wagner, the captain, went up and put BKB ahead of SAE in the quals at the top of the pole. He actually pointed at the SAE name and waved it goodbye off the top, and thus warranted some boos from the SAE folks, which were in the stands for qualifications the first Saturday after spring series. Well, the spring break.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and if the enemy is the rest of the field, then it looks like BKB and SAE are once again friends, working together out front. They would rather distance themselves from the broader pack and work together despite some of the, let's just say, contention that has developed this year with these teams.
It's SAE, BKB, and Cutters, the top 4 right now. Delts and ASIG are following closely behind Cutters at the moment. If I'm not mistaken, Matt, is this Luke Noss's first set? I haven't seen him that much today. First or second?
I haven't been paying attention as good as I could have, but regardless if it's first set or not, this is his first major effort off the front, and that's the most important thing. They're officially investing calories and pouring gas into this burn. Now, Austin, I don't think they're actually going to pull away. Maybe they're actually not working as collaboratively as we're seeing from the booth. I'm seeing cutters, Delta Tau Delta, ASIG, and 3PH all slowly but surely pull them in. We'll have to see if this comes together or if it's going to stay apart.
It's Judah Thompson on right now for cutters. So Wiley Close on for BKB, Luke Noss on for SAE, Judah Thompson on for cutters. Three of the top riders in this field for the three teams that we all expected that would probably in some order potentially finish on top of the podium. Fidelt making an exchange, Forrest does as well. Quinn Peterson on the bike, as is Joseph Grimes for Forrest. SAE, BKB out in front. Judah Thompson finishes lap number 95, 5.5 seconds behind the pace being set by the top two teams in quals. Just over an hour here, gone at Bill Armstrong Stadium for the 74th running of the men's Little 500 alongside former Jet Black rider Matt McGorry. I am Austin Platt. Thanks for joining us on this sun-splashed Saturday afternoon here at Bill Armstrong Stadium, one of the best days in Bloomington, Indiana. And we have a beautiful day for it and a great bike race approaching the halfway point.
So we talked about 24 teams being on the lead lap around lap 50. That's dwindled all the way to 7, really being in contention in this kind of lead effort by lap 96. We have BKB and SAE kind of out on the front, still pacing, but not really pulling away from the rest of the pack, followed by Cutters, Delta Tau Delta, 3PH, Human Wheels, and ASIG.
BKB and SAE alongside Cutters, the top three at the moment. Delts is in there, as is 3PH in the top 5. Human Wheels currently riding 6th. Those 5 teams all within 10 seconds right now of BKB. Them and SAE have been exchanging who's been in front the last few laps. Now 97 in the books.
And they're actually starting to pull away again here, Austin, especially as Cutters facilitates this exchange. By the way, I think Judah actually pulled Cutters back into this lead pack, so they had to get him off the bike and get a fresh rider on. That's enabled SAE and BKB to get about a straightaway lead on the rest of the field, being led by Delta Tau Delta at the moment. So for now, this effort is sticking with BKB and SAE off the front.
And it is BKB once again in front after 98 laps. For more on the reigning champs, we send it down to Riley Woodall.
Hey, thanks, AP. When I asked Will Wagner about our walk and talk that we did after he won the race for BKB last year, he said it was one of the most emotional moments of his life because of all the past hard times that they've had to go through. He also told me this year that it's going to be an even bigger task for them to go back-to-back because now they have a target on their back. As you can see right now, BKB and SAE going at it halfway through this race. It's no secret that this rivalry's been brewing all spring long. And it's really kind of become BKB versus the world. Will told me that he loves getting booed by the other teams because it fuels them more and more. His teammate Wiley Close, who's on the bike right now going against Luke Noss, he agreed with him and said that getting booed when you're in a position of being better, there's an entire dynamic shift because now they know that the other teams are booing them and dislike them because they know that BKB can compete with them and has a good chance to go back-to-back today. AP, Matt.
Riley, this competition, obviously, these guys are friends off the bike. They want to beat each other on one day, that's today, but the rest of the year they're training with each other. A lot of these guys go down to Florida for winter break. They spend plenty of time together. I'm told that there's some poker games being played in spring series. I asked who the best poker player was, and you know, right on cue, no one would tell me, showing that true poker face, but these guys do plenty of things off the bike to stay close with one another. This is a true biking community. And the competitiveness certainly fuels everyone on race day, but other than that, it is certainly a great atmosphere and camaraderie between the others, as Jason Kemp, we just saw for Forrest, get on the bike in the bright orange as Joseph Grimes hops off.
We're seeing Luke and Wiley Close continue to collaboratively trade these half-lap pulls here. Half-lap kind of enables both of them to kind of carry the effort of the overall drafting strategy here. They're still staying a little over a straightaway lead off of the chasing pack. We'll have to see how that really will play out as they enter their next exchange sequence. It's difficult to invest this much energy into an effort like this with 100 laps left in the race, especially with two of your best riders being on the track.
It's Blackie Bulls in the lead after now lap 102. It's Wiley Close, the sophomore, out in front. It's two seniors for Blackie Bulls, a junior and Zach Villarreal, and Wiley Close, a sophomore, as the 4-team bunch in the hopes to repeat for the first time in BKB history. And we take a look at what's happened so far. A little bit of a crash on lap 5 around turn 4. We saw Faisai make a little bit of a move and spread the pack out and thin the field out a little bit on lap 55, and then it was lap 81 where the crash happened along turn number 1, which has affected a few teams. Chi Alpha was one of them, as was Sigma Nu, as both those teams outside of the top 10 right now. Cutters did a good job catching back up, but it's still SAE and BKB. We'll give you all 33 teams at the halfway point. Delts is 3rd, Cutters 4th, Human Wheels 5th, ASIG is 6th, 3PH, Fiji, Macro, Faisai makes up the top 10. Sigma Nu, SIGEP, Fidel, Forest, Chi Alpha, IUDM, Americana, Chinzano, Godspeed, AKL, that's 11 through 20. AK Psi, Grey Goat, Novus, Delta Sigma Pi, Chi Phi, CSF, Pi, Kappa Alpha, that's Pike, Theta Chi, Bears, Phi Sigma Kappa, Beta Theta Pi, Tau Epsilon Phi, who dealt with an injury earlier, and Army Cycling. The running field at the moment.
Wow, Austin. So I actually just saw Wiley Close turn to Luke Noss and say, no, let's do one more lap. So they are working together like they're friends, like they're buddies, up until about lap 180, I'd say. We're going to see SAE and BKB, despite all of the programming we've already included, they're going to exchange at the same time. They're going to completely task this out. Mainly that's because they need to work together to stay away. I saw Delta Tau Delta and Cutters exchange at the same time, so they're attempting the same strategy to kind of pull them in. We'll have to see how this plays out.
Oh, Fidel having a little bit of problem with an exchange there. They're going to get their rider out of the way, and now BKB and SAE both making exchanges. Pretty clean on both ends. It's Paul Lee hopping on the bike, as is Rhett Skavarna for BKB and SAE. And now we'll see if Cutters in this chasing pack recognize that and catch back up. Right now they're 16, 17 or so seconds behind, but obviously with the exchanges, you lose plenty of seconds on that lead.
You know, Austin, what we're seeing here, where teams are kind of taking half lap, full lap pulls, this is team pursuit. This is why Spring Series is a good analog for the actual race. What we're seeing here is basically team pursuit, where you're trying to stay ahead. You're not really burning all your matches all at once, but it's more of a long run, consistent effort. And we're going to have to see if Cutters, who had a phenomenal team pursuit performance this year, can kind of bring that to bear as they work to chase in BKB and SAE here.
Paul Lee finished 17th in ITTs, rode for 3PH a few years ago. It's SAE with Rhett Skavarna, a junior, in his 3rd race, finished 18th in individual time trials. ITTs occur right after quals in late March, and then you have Missing Out and Team Pursuit, usually in back-to-back weekends, but because of rain this year, they were all condensed into one weekend. So Friday you had Missing Out, and then Sunday Team Pursuit. That was 2 weeks ago. Last week is an open week for all the riders with open track time, and even the men's and women's soccer teams get a chance to play some spring matches here. So the home for the soccer teams in the fall. Obviously the scene shifts to cycling in the spring. There's a look at that is Zach Villarreal on the bike, or I should say in the pit box, keeping his legs warm. After 107 laps, it's SAE, BKB, Cutters, Delts, and 3PH Cycling, the top 5 at the moment. And this gap, it feels like it's expanding a little bit. It's a little bit more than a straightaway lead for BKB and SAE.
I have it timed right here, Austin. About 14 seconds is the gap right now, and with Delta Tau Delta, Cutters, and 3PH being the main chasers now, that even chase group is starting to whittle down as well.
ASIG is part of that second chasing pack, finishing up the top 10. They have Ethan Best, a junior, on the bike. We're seeing Fidel make an exchange. The, I guess, teal blue is what we'll call it, but they get a new rider on. And is Charlie Ernst, the junior, the lone non-returner, the rookie. If it's your first race, you are referred to as a rookie, even if you're not a freshman here on the IU campus. These are all students in this race. You have to maintain good academic standing. And this is a phenomenal event put on every single year, and a culmination of years of hard work on the track. Obviously an academic year which is coming to a close, and this is a big celebration for IU students across the campus, and there are students that come here from all over the country, all over the world to experience this once-in-a-lifetime event for these riders on these 33 teams today.
So the curious thing, Austin, if you're a fit team, this is the race you wanted. You want to be able to absolutely, the race to be decided by your strength, by your fitness, by your speed. And if you're BKB and SAE, this is playing out exactly like you wanted to, with them off the front, being able to rotate efficiently through with their riders. It's going to make it very difficult for the chasing pack, which is mainly comprised of cutters, Delta Tau Delta, and 3PH to pull through. And even 3PH is kind of just being smart, being savvy, not really pulling through along with Delta Tau Delta and cutters. So we'll have to see how we're able to actually get some differentiation both across the lead group and the chase group.
Colin Monosmith hopped on the bike for Human Wheels, a senior in his third race. A ton of returners in this field this year, Matt. There are a lot of juniors and seniors who rode last year. We've mentioned SAE returns all 4 riders from last year. Cutters returns a few riders, obviously with Judah Thompson at the top. Blackie Bulls returns 2 riders from last year. And as we mentioned, Paul Lee has experience on a different team, as we see SAE and BKB out in front. You see they're up by 18 seconds on that first chasing pack of 3 riders, and then another 7 seconds for that second chasing pack. So the lead is expanding. You mentioned it was just 14 seconds, now up to 18 for SAE and BKB.
And the tricky part, Austin, is that Delta Tau Delta is working with cutters. 3PH is about 6 or 7 pits down from cutters. They can't all exchange at the same time. They can't have those efficient exchanges like BKB and SAE can. Makes it very difficult to kind of optimize their approach to pulling in the leaders here.
Still BKB and SAE, the top 2 after a 36-second lap from the Blackie Bulls. 3PH is 3rd. Cutters 4th. They were part of that crash on lap 82. They were double-digit seconds down, now getting a little bit closer, but this is a true pull here from BKB and SAE, trying to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Karem Keskin hops on the bike in favor of Billy Gregory. Keskin actually crashed out during missing out, but I should say team pursuit, but the rest of the group was able to pull through and win team pursuit over SAE a few weeks ago. It was a crazy finish between 2 of the top 3 teams in this race, with BKB also in that mix. They finished in the top 3 of team pursuit, and right now it's SAE and BKB alongside Delta and Cutters as the top 4, with 3PH 5th.
I see Jack Lloyd, I believe, on the bike for Delta Tau Delta telling 3PH, hey, we need to work together. This is not going in our direction. We need to work to pull these teams in. The lead is almost to half a lap, just a tick under half a lap. So it's moving in the wrong direction if you're in the chase pack. We'll have to see if other chasers might be able to work their way up to where Delta Tau Delta and 3PH and Cutters are. Maybe with a bigger group, they can have more efficiency. But so far, this is moving in the wrong direction if you're not a BKB or SAE fan.
Yeah, that's Jack Lloyd, just finished a lap right there in that first chasing pack, 17.7 seconds behind. The average lap has been 38 seconds. So
that's good.
By my calculation, that's just under half a lap. And now, as a rider chasing, Matt, wouldn't you be looking for other riders to potentially go off their wheel, or is it just kind of you're telling the guys behind you, hey, we have to work together, get on my wheel, and let's push this?
So if Cutters catches Delta Tau Delta here, I think that's exactly what they'll be talking about. The tricky thing is, Austin, there's not a lot of riders to work with at this point in the race. With so few teams on the lead lap right now, as you kind of pass people, you can kind of get in their draft for a second, but you're passing them. So you can't really work with them like SAE and BKB are off the front. So it's tricky and it's hard, and it's something that these chasing teams are going to have to try to find a strategy for, to figure out if they have any hope in ensuring that this isn't the winning move for BKB and SAE here.
3PH just made an exchange. It's JT Underhill, their captain, on the bike. He said they didn't take spring series seriously. He mentioned, he told me flat out, they don't think they're the third fittest team. He mentioned top 10 is the goal. And he also said something very interesting, that it's a different point of view, Matt, when you're on the bike on race day compared to watching tape. These guys watch, race tape all year long. You're watching last year's, you're watching previous years, you're watching all the strategies that teams have. But, the overhead and obviously what you're watching here is so much different than when you're looking at, someone's front wheel or back wheel right in front of you.
It's very different, Austin, and think of like the presence of mind effect. It's one thing to understand what the strategy is. It's a whole other thing to execute it when you're on the track and having to kind of deal with not only your fatigue, both physically and mentally, but also the broader happenings of the race, having to react, know when to press, know when to push. Another tricky thing is, guys, I'm so sorry. I've been watching a lot of F1, so the metaphors are coming to me quick. Passing back markers on the track is difficult, and you have to scream inside, inside. You pass on the inside in the little 500. That's just another thing you have to work through as you kind of chase and put all your cards on the table here.
Maybe that means we have to add a potential GoPro for some teams next year to really see what it's like from the point of view of a rider. But it's still BKB and SAE out in front. Actually, Delts, it looked like, had caught up because they burned. Delts, BKB, SAE, the top three after 118 laps. There's a look at Will Wagner getting ready. I just saw a note in the BKB box from Jordan Bailey that said 2 more laps. So Wagner will get back on the bike, and Cutters throws Judah Thompson back on as well.
I think Judah's going to really try to get up to Delta Tau Delta here and hope that they can work together. I think that's going to be their strategy. And, Delta Tau Delta, they don't want to go back to Cutters. They'd rather keep their position, of course. But ultimately, we're going to need to see more collaboration and working together if this is going to come back together at all.
Lucas Lemmy on the bike for SAE, finished 11th in ITTs, and Will Wagner, the captain for BKB, is on as well. So those two still out in front. And they are moving along the back stretch, heading into turn number 3. Just one crash so far if you're just joining us on lap 82. Cutters, Sigma Nu, Fiji, Sig Ep were all involved. And most of them have been kind of taken out of the fray here, but Cutters is still in that chasing pack. As you take a look at the nearly sold out crowd here at Bill Armstrong Stadium, a phenomenal day for racing. Definitely on the cooler side. Some wind, a few wind gusts in this one, which, as we mentioned, makes the turns around turn number 1, which is the first one after the start-finish line, over to our right, a little more difficult.
Okay, Austin, that 14-second lead has shrunken to a 12-second lead. Still sizable, still a lot of work to close down, but surely, Chi Alpha, Delta Tau Delta, and Judah, as he kind of catches these leaders, they're doing everything they can to pull this in.
An hour and 19 minutes gone here, 122 laps in the books. It is still SAE and BKB out in front. Our official race counter is down for the moment, but we do know it's still those two teams in front after making exchanges a few laps ago. It's Lucas Lemmy and Will Wagner on for SAE, who are wearing the white jersey because they won Spring Series. And Blackie Bulls obviously in the yellow as the reigning champs from last year, as you would see in the Tour de France. Could have also worn the green as the winners of qualifications, but you'd much rather wear gold than green, in my opinion. You're setting the gold standard for everybody else in that bright yellow.
Oh, of course, Austin. And, talk about body language for a moment. BKB and SCE, they're not looking around. There's no need to look around. You're off the front, you're working together, you're slotting around. Let's look at the the chasers. I'm seeing John Peterson on Delta Tau Delta. He's looking around a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily because he's exhausted. I'm sure he is. But they're trying to find a partner. It's almost like everybody else is in no man's land, but SA and BKB have their kind of destiny defined here. It's a lot easier to race when kind of what you should be doing is simplified.
It's BKB and SAE, still the top two at the moment. 124 laps gone, an hour and 20 minutes in the books. 3PH getting ready for an exchange, but there's a look at the top two, the white and the yellow of SAE and BKB. There's a look at the lap counters. BKB SAE out there in front. These are all volunteers, which unofficially have the counters up for everyone in the stands. You know, some racers in this race, I know, Matt, are former lap counters that fall in love with it. You know, as much patience as it takes. I can't imagine doing that. I would lose focus after like lap 40. I mean, doesn't matter. I just lose track of a rider. You know, you see a squirrel somewhere. I don't have the brain power for that. But credit to those guys, and who knows, maybe some of those guys will be racing one day.
Oh, I'm sure, Austin. Usually it's kind of a, you know, maybe a rookie on your team or somebody who's interested in joining. Certainly takes a lot of concentration to make sure that you're kind of updating your lap counters accordingly. You know, sometimes as timing and other things in the race become chaotic, it's even more important to understand who's winning, who's on the lead lap, etc.
125 laps gone. We got some more carpool karaoke for you here via Go Bloomington, so we'll throw it there.
I'm Thomas. I'm Karev. I'm Jacob. I'm Jake. I'm Joe.
And log your rides today at gobloomington.org.
Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. I'm just a poor boy. I need no sympathy, 'cause I'm easy come, easy go.
Teams of many talents, both racing and singing, a little carpool karaoke as well. Shout out to the Cutters for doing that. You know, these guys are on car rides. Many of them drive down to Florida with the bikes for spring break or winter break. That's some 18 hours. So you got plenty of songs you're able to listen to. You can really get your singing down.
I'm feeling like we need to make Spring Series a little more, you know, multi-dimensional, I'll just say. You know, I think a talent show could be a good addition.
I'll tell you what, our guy Max Parker would love that, because he was a former, before he actually became a sports media guy, he was in the theater. So he's vouching. He's probably jumping up and down somewhere right now.
Well, theater's great, Austin. I'm getting enough theater today in front of us. I mean, this is a full-on spectacle, trying to watch these teams pull each other in here. It's certainly kind of settled in with SAE and BKB still being off the front. Their lead has actually grown to over half of a lap now, so it's looking more likely than not that this will indeed stay away. Although, Austin, there's still another 72 laps, and who knows what's in store. We've seen crazier things happen with teams who are lapping the field crashing out, so we'll have to see what happens in the next 70 laps or so.
It's BKB, SAE, Forrest, and Sig Ep. They have gotten themselves right back into contention in the top 5 after they were part of that crash on lap 82. 3PH, Chi Alpha, Phi Delt, Delts, Macro, and Phi Psi, the top 10 at the moment, but the lead for SAE and BKB is about half a lap, and it seems to be growing as well. Sigma Nu is going to give way to Cutters in the second chase pack. Cutters down by 21 seconds now, Matt.
And just brutal for Judah here. I mean, he's one of the best riders in the entire field. He did the bulk of the effort to catch Cutters back up to that lead pack before SAE and BKB were able to break away. John Peterson's been on the bike for quite a while for Delta Tau Delta in 4th as well. Hard to really pull in the leaders when you've been out on the track for so long, putting in your maximum effort. If we see SAE and BKB pass Delta Tau Delta and Cutters, then certainly I think they are locking in a good chance to go 1-2 in today's race.
It's still BKB and SAE out in front after lap 130, so 70 to go here in the 74th running of the men's Little 500. Well over the halfway point, and this is now just all about exhaustion, fatigue, and just overall the mental fortitude to get over whatever you're feeling right now. 131 laps in the books, 85 minutes elapsed here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. It's been SAE and BKB out in front really ever since that crash, Matt, on lap 82. They kind of realized that there were some contenders that went down, pulled out in front after we had a yellow flag for a few laps. Then they really pulled out and used that time to rest and maybe plot as well. And it's been the two of them ahead of the rest.
And again, when you can work together and know that in working together, you're both putting yourselves in a position to win. I mean, Austin, they're going to keep working together for at least another 40 laps. I don't expect any kind of cast and mount games between BKB and SE until at least lap, let's say 180, 185. They want to secure this opportunity to lock in at a worst second place podium finish. And so Well, again, I think we're going to see more of the same of what we've been seeing, teams putting in their maximum effort, kind of time trialing to the best of their ability off the front, and we'll have to kind of take it from there.
BKB, SAE, Delts, Cutters, and Forrest in the top 5 right now. Cutters and Delts down by 22 seconds, and Forrest is in that 3-man first chasing group, a millisecond behind, but everything is still updating with BKB and SAE still out in front. It's the Black Bulls and Sigma Alpha Epsilon. BKB has won this race 3 times, 2014, 2017, 2024. They won it last year and pulled away late. SAE has won this race once back in 1963. Have been close the last few years, trying to get over the edge, and they're trying to essentially save their guy Luke Noss, the sprinter, and what they hope to be is a sprint finish with what could be BKB to decide this one. 67 laps to go.
And maybe they don't want it to come down to a sprint, Austin. So that's another thing to think about here is I expect that lap 175 to lap 185, that SAE and BKB, they're going to start trying to play with each other. They're going to slow down a little bit. They're going to have to find a way to get away from the other. Of course, Luke Noss is going to be feeling great if he's next to BKB with 1 lap to go. But I don't think they're going to let that happen. I think something else is going to decide the race between BKB and SAE if they're still together off the front with 20 to 15 laps to go.
Both SAE and BKB getting ready for exchanges here along turn number 1. It's Zach Villarreal, the junior, and Matthew Noss, the freshman. They're both going to make exchanges. Bike-to-bike exchanges, both tap their buddies.
Look how efficient that is.
It is just like clockwork, almost like they're mimicking each other, and they'll both get back into the swing of things, and we'll see the chase pack led by Delts and Cutters. Forrest Cycling is in there as well. A team that Forrest, they mentioned that 15 to 20 guys expressed interest in their dorm, and their captain Griffin Stark mentioned it's almost like speed dating, trying to find guys that are willing to put in the effort and train throughout the year. And they mentioned that they were hoping for a rainy day today. They want chaos and slop. Not going to quite. The rain was last night. It was a few hours, about 12 hours earlier than race time. But regardless, Forrest in the top 5 on a very good race so far. SAE and BKB 11-second lead compared to Cutters, Delts, and Forrest. And it's a little bit more than a straightaway, I would say. It's just about a straightaway as SAE Cutters make the turn around turn 3. The rest of that first chasing pack go around turn 2.
So a key thing though, Austin, it's a straightaway, but BKB and SAE just exchanged. So right. The onus is going to be on Cutters, Delta Tau Delta, and Forrest to exchange and try to do what they can to keep this gap somewhere close to where it already is. They're definitely going to lose some time. Now, Judah is an incredible rider. We're seeing Cutters, it looks like, prepare for an exchange here. But ultimately, this is the time for them to completely empty the tank for these riders on the track right now, as it's unlikely that they'll have the same amount of effort, especially towards the end of the race.
Blackie Bulls, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, the top 2 in quals were separated by just a little bit over a second. Blackie Bulls came in with a quals time of 2 minutes and 23 seconds. SAE at 2:24.8. And the quals times were really, really strong this year. For some teams, 10 seconds better than previous years. It's a field that has gotten much stronger, much deeper, and more guys just putting more work in around the clock to make sure that their teams can A, qualify, and B, succeed and get to their expectations on race day.
Okay, Austin, I just timed it at 11.8 seconds as the gap. And again, BKB and SAE are going to be a little fresh, and a lot of that gap is driven from the fact that Cutters and Delta Tau Delta have not exchanged. But if you are closing the gap in, then why would you exchange? They're kind of letting it play out a little bit. Again, Judah is such a phenomenal athlete that he can really go deep in the tank and pull in a lot of this effort, but starting to see some of the pedal strokes get a little choppy from Judah and John Peterson, who have been on the bike for quite a long time. BKB and SAE, I think I've actually cycled through 2 riders in the time that both of these guys have been on the bike. So that's ultimately going to be something that is going to cost them, but for now it's playing in their favor.
Approaching 60 laps to go here as SAE and BKB with Lemmy and Wagner. Rather, it's Matthew Noss. It's the 2-4 riders. It's Matthew Noss and Zach Villarreal, a sophomore and a junior, on for SAE and BKB after a 36-second lap from SAE. And Cutters with Judah Thompson on the bike. And as you mentioned, Matt, with John Peterson, a senior, and the top ITT rider on this Delts team has been on the bike for a while. It's now a little over 12 seconds, approaching 13. There are a bunch of riders following BKB and SAE. Phi Delt is one of them, alongside Sig Epp in there as well, with Rohan Schluber, a sophomore in his first race. From what I know, no connection with Shalou Bees, one of the best sandwich shops in Bloomington if you've been around.
I thought his parents were a founder of Shalou Bees.
They may be. We'll have to check with that afterwards. Maybe our post-game dinner, they'll be at Shalou Bees.
Oh,
I heard
great.
they're pretty good prices, especially over Little 5 weekend.
Huh.
141 laps down and over 90 minutes gone here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. This is, for some guys, 4 years of hard work being poured into one day in April, as the cliche goes. All students at IU train year-round. These are essentially Division I athletes not on scholarship that, don't nearly get enough credit, but for those that in Greek life or in houses, they have plenty of support from the house. These guys are watching their buddies and brothers train all year round. And obviously many of them this morning, get the walk out from the house with everyone there early in the morning to watch them bike over to Bill Armstrong Stadium, and what is a moment that many guys cherish, sometimes even more than stepping into Bill Armstrong Stadium. Just the support staff that you have as a rider, from the alumni to your teammates, to anyone in the house or your community that you have, let's say, as an independent team, it's all priceless.
And the recognition that the time you spent, the hundreds and thousands of hours in the fall, in the winter, in the spring, that it means so much more than just your team. It's your community, it's your alumni, it's your family and your friends. You're dead on, Austin. People and these riders will remember that for the rest of their lives. Now, a curious thing here. Cutters and Delta Tau Delta, I hate to keep harping on this, they still have an exchange. This is a just monster set from Judah, by the way. And the fact that they are slowly but surely pulling them in, look how long this pack is after SAE and BKB. There must be 12, 14 riders there. If Judah and John can actually just latch on to that pack, they don't have to get all the way up to BKB and SAE. They just have to be able to draft. Yep. So slowly but surely, this, what we are presuming to be like an 11-second lead, it's actually just like a 6 or 7 second lead.
If you can get onto that back wheel, as you mentioned, and the ability to draft and not do as much work with the wind resistance and everything makes so much of a difference. And that's why we've seen BKB and SAE kind of switching off, using the others' as back wheel to draft, and thus not doing really as much work. And now we're seeing Delts and
finally,
Cutters.
Delts is going to come in from a burn here. Judah's going to match it, so he's going to get an opportunity to really empty the tank and try to get up here. But ultimately,
now they're riding side by side here with Ben Nordstrom is getting ready to hop on the bike with Thompson just in front of him. We see both SAE and BKB preparing for exchanges here.
Interesting, Austin. SAE is far ahead of BKB on this exchange sequence here. Is this going to be them going off the front and making BKB have to double down just to catch up? We'll have to see.
It's Luke Noss on the bike, as is Wiley Close.
And finally, Judah gets off the bike and puts on their number 2 rider, Jake Zaroff. We're going to have to see Ben and Jake just really crank it here and do what they can.
We've mentioned SAE's potentially saving up Luke Noss, and for more on him, we send it down to Kara Adams.
Noss for majority of this race. I mean, he didn't get on the bike till it was nearly halfway through, nearly around those 98, 100 laps. And so it's interesting to see how SAE will strategize towards as we get to nearly the almost 50 laps left in this race. But something also important to note is just that just shows how much depth SAE has, that they're able to go the whole time and keep that lead with BKB and kind of draft off one another with BKB and save Luke Noss until the end if it's going to come down to a sprint finish. Guys.
Thanks a lot, Kara. We see Luke Noss on the bike right now. He is just in front of Wiley Close, 2 guys who were on both teams last year on race day.
and they've already put an effort in this kind of off-the-front exchange sequence. So they're on their at least second significant set of effort. That's no problem for these guys. They certainly train to do 3, 4, 5 sets of that effort. But ultimately, they're going to have less at the end of the race. So if we're right that Luke has been purposefully kind of cadencing his effort along with Wiley, this is going to kind of make it a bit more dynamic towards the end when they're not going to have as much energy available.
It's SAE and BKB. Forrest getting ready for an exchange. They're currently riding 5th. Delts and Cutters are in the middle. It's Jason Kemp who gets on the bike. BKB, SAE crossed the line after lap 149. 51 to go here, approaching the final quarter of this race. Delts and Cutters in that first chase pack. Fiji, Sigep, Fidelt, Macro, Human Wheels making up the top 10 as of now. FiSci 11th and 3PH 12th. Remember, we saw FiSci take the lead right around lap 70, go out in front and try and speed up this race a little bit. They mentioned they wanted to see what the pace of race day would look like instead of going off just their qual times. And look back from Luke Noss. Behind him is Wiley Close. And now 50 laps to go.
Now, Austin, it was a bit chilly up here in the booth. Wind's still coming in. Beautiful day. I can tell you it's hot on the track. You want to know how I know it's hot on the track?
Someone's sweating.
I just saw Judah put on an ice vest.
Wow.
So I think Cutters is seriously trying to get him back on the bike, just like SAE and BKB did with Luke and Wiley Close getting back on the bike. You want your best riders to be the ones to ultimately convert this effort. And so it's going to be curious how each of these coaches thinks about their 4 riders. Do I want to put my best rider in? Do I want to put my freshest rider in? There's a lot of decisions here.
How much warmer do you think it is down on the track? It says 61 degrees right now from where we're at. How much warmer do you think it is down there?
It's probably about 80 degrees.
Wow.
You know, think about like an asphalt road getting hot. It's the same thing with these black and brown cinders on the track.
Can't quite fry an egg quite yet there, but it probably feels like you could for these riders. And if you mentioned Judah Thompson's got the ice around his neck, as I see right now in front of me. They're trying to cool him down. Still BKB and SAE out in front here after 151 laps. They're up about 16 seconds over Cutters and Delts. Sigep, Fiji, Forrest, Macro, Human Wheels, Fidelt, the top 10. 3PH has dropped all the way down to 12th after they were in the mix for a good chunk of the first 100 laps, as was Sigma Nu. They're about 21 seconds down, and 14 teams still on the lead lap.
And just to be clear here, a lot of these other cyclists behind SAE and Cutters and the white and, behind SAE and BKB in the white and yellow respectively, they are lapped. There's nothing penalizing them from just sitting in the draft of the teams ahead of them, but they are truly lapped, and they will have to get out of the way if Delta Tau Delta and Cutters are able to pull this in.
We'll see if they can do that. Everyone's been chasing BKB and SAE for the last 70 laps or so, it feels like. We're on lap 154 now. And it's been BKB and SAE out in front of the rest of the pack. 2 teams that arguably are the strongest and the deepest. SAE has 4 riders that all finish in the top 20 of individual time trials. BKB has 3 riders that finish within the top 20. The way, we kind of go about this, and with Spring Series, it's such, a shot in the dark. You're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, throwing statistics and numbers and seeing what sticks, but it really feels like that third ITT rider shows you who the deepest and best teams really are. And with SAE and BKB, 2 guys all in the top, 3 guys in the top 20 really tells you how deep they are.
There's some very nerdy people in the Little 500 community, some of which take some artificial intelligence classes in the business analytics curriculum at Indiana. And as you said, Austin, some of these statistics do say that your 3rd and 4th rider, the strength of your 3rd and 4th rider in ITTs, I should say, is a great proxy for overall team strength. And look at SAE and BKB, some of the strongest 1, 2, 3, 4 riders in terms of their average ITT position, certainly showing why that is important and why that's a great proxy for team strength and performance.
I take it you would identify as one of those statistical nerds?
Yes, that's probably why I do it for a living nowadays.
Sales expert Matt McGorry and former Jet Black rider. To my left, I'm Austin Platt. 45 laps to go here in the men's Little 500. It's Blackie Bulls, the winners of last year. Sigma Alpha Epsilon, typically one of the best fraternities in this race. They've only won once. but they have been on the podium 14 times. Finished second place 2 years ago, finished 6th last year, despite leading for the most laps in the race. It's SAE and BKB out in front. Cutters is going to get ready to make an exchange. They're currently third with Delta Tau Delta right behind them. Obviously, Delta's a very historic team in this race as well. They have won it 3 times. Obviously, formerly under the name Jet Black, have success as well.
Now, Austin, just to tie this together for everybody watching at home, the person who actually won the race for Jet Black in 2021, his name is Rob Grahulik. He's an SAE alum. And so I think he's actually on the SAE wall today, likely cheering, play both sides so you always win type situation. But I know there's a lot of just overlap across these teams, and it'll be curious to see how this plays out here.
Cutters waved off that exchange for now. And it looks like they are going to make it in the very end. It is Billy Gregory, the senior who started the race. He's on the bike, and Jake Zarev pops off. Gregory finished 37th in ITTs. Cutters told me when I talked to them 10 days ago, they're much more healthy than they were last year. And he said flat out, they said, we control this race. So that just shows you the target that Cutters always has on their back. And actually, Judo rode with Blackie Bulls in high school. He's a townie, if you've watched the movie Breaking Away. He's from Bloomington and actually rode with some of the BKB guys, but eventually ended up with Cutters when he was here his freshman year back in 2023. That year, Cutters obviously won the race and have won it 15 times, the most of any team in this race.
So Austin, we saw there for a moment in that last kind of exchange sequence, both Delta Tau Delta and Cutters actually started kind of drafting off teams that were lapped. That's never a good sign. It shows that you're hurting, you're looking for a wheel to draft off of. Both of them facilitated this exchange sequence here, have fresh riders on the bike. That's Blake Hadalowski for Delta Tau Delta, and we'll have to see who Cutters is as they come around here. Good to put a fresh rider on. We know that SAE and BKB are both going to have to exchange. Both Luke and Wiley have been on the bike for quite some time now. But hopefully this helps both Cutters and Delta Tau Delta start pulling in and chipping away at this lead. If not, then we're going to have to start keeping an eye on any cat and mouse games that start happening with SAE and BKB. They're going to increasingly become uncooperative and try to find a way to not have to just drag each other to the finish line.
BKB out in front after a 40-second lap. That's where you can see that fatigue. That 40-second lap really shows you things are slowing down for the top 2 teams at the moment as they are riding in front of Cutters and Delts. Delts going ahead after this lap with Gregory fresh on the bike for Cutters. BKB has, I believe that's Will Wagner out there, potentially getting ready for an exchange. Jordan Bailey right next to him as the student coach for the 2nd straight year. And he's saying a few more laps, and I believe Nas just signaled 1. A little bit of a collision in the Fiji pit box as they go for an exchange. Forrest passes them. Fiji currently riding 5th. Phi Gamma Delta, another very historic team in this race. They've won it 6 times. They mentioned last year was a rebuilding year. Have all returning riders from previous races. Their captain, Jarno Hicks, Walker Kite, and MJ Cancilla all rode last year, and Cuddy Beresheim rode 2 years ago. Spent last year abroad in Italy.
We're going to see them cue off each other again. You couldn't design a better pit strategy.
It's a fake. Oh, both don't exchange. Whoa, there's the cat and mouse game.
There's the cat and mouse games. Like I said, they completely faked it. Now, just so everyone at home knows, you cannot leave a bike in the pit for too long, otherwise you will incur a penalty. So while you can do that once, you see Gavin Good, BKB's mechanic, run the bike over again, you actually do have to exchange. So that's not something that you can do on a repeatable basis.
We'll get a second look at it here, as it looks like BKB is not going to exchange on this lap either. And here's a look. Well, once goes, and the other one naturally has got to go as well.
Wow, so Luke could not get through. He couldn't line up this exchange here. Now he's far behind. BKB, I mean, they almost have a straightaway lead on SAE now. Totally flips the script.
You mentioned that the teams would eventually start, trying to mess with each other And Blackheath Bulls being in front of SAE for that exchange, you have the ability to go out in front and make that move, and then that's where the reaction versus, being reactive and more passive, obviously what SAE had to do, you really have no option other than to stay on the bike.
How you react is how you win, and earlier I talked about how sometimes when you're racing and the strategy is simplified, hey, I just got to dump my entire effort onto the track. That is certainly something that helps you be a little more focused and ultimately performant. The curious thing, though, is now Delta Tau Delta and Cutters, they just have to keep cranking away here. If BKB and SAE are going to continually play these games, then perhaps there's an opportunity to pull in, though Wiley is absolutely cranking it. I mean, he can see the back of Blake's for Delta Tau Delta's back now. So ultimately, I do think that this will stay away, but we'll have to see if SAE can't crank this in here.
After a 37-second lap from BKB, 165 laps done. It's a 5-second lead now for Blackheath Bulls. It was right around this point last year, a few laps later, when, if you remember, that Blackheath Bulls and Sig Ep had that collision in the pit as Will Pitts was getting off the bike, collided with a BKB rider, and that essentially wiped out Sig Ep and gave BKB that lead. And it feels like it's around this juncture, around the final quarter of the race, when Blackheath Bulls kind of sniffs blood here and makes a move by not making a move, essentially, if you want to put it that way. And they are attempting to really break free of SAE.
Here's the thing, Austin. Wiley has done an incredible effort off the front, and this is the second effort in this overall move. And he was trading pools with SAE's top rider, Luke, for some time. If anybody wants to know what this feels like, go walk up and down 500 stairs, and you'll probably get a good understanding of how Wiley's quads feel right now. Now, he is going to have to exchange, and every lap that goes by that the SAE rider, Rhett Skarna, is able to stay out, they're going to be able to pull in. So ultimately, I do think this is going to come back together, but it's going to be in SAE's court to pull this BKB exchange in.
There is the exchange. Will Wagner hops back on the bike. I was thinking about sending one of our spotters, Ian Plaskoff or Andrew Hilsman, to go do 500 stairs up and down. I'll give them a break on that one and have them continue helping us out here in the broadcast booth here at Bill Armstrong Stadium alongside Matt McGorry, former Jet Black rider. I am Austin Platt, Kara Adams, Riley Woodall, and former rider Max Parker joining us in the infield, watching this race unfold with 33 laps to go. It is BKB out in front with Will Wagner, but the lead is decreasing as SAE is right on their tail. Rhett Skavarna on the bike for SAE, as is Will Wagner for BKB. It's a 2.5-second advantage for the pole sitters.
And Will looks very good now. Consistent pedal stroke, he's taking off. He's about 3 or 4 laps fresher than SAE's rider as well. And to be honest, Austin, it breaks my heart to see my my team about to be lapped here, but I think it might just happen. They're about a half straightaway away from lapping 3rd place, which is certainly locking in a 1-2 finish for BKB and SAE.
Yeah, Cutters is just in front of Delts as well. They're getting close to potentially being lapped as well. A ton of strategy obviously goes into this entire race, and it's very important with about 30 laps to go. For more on that, we send it down to Max Parker.
How quickly things can change, guys. Just about 4 laps ago, we were going to talk about when it was time for Blackheath Bulls and SAE to stop working together. Things have a way of playing themselves out, because just in the middle of some exchanges, a gap formed, and then it looked like SAE was about to catch right back up with Blackheath Bulls, but then they put a brand new fresh rider on, Will Wagner, on the bike right now. He is going absolutely all in right now, and he's extended the lead. So here's where we get an exchange from SAE, putting one of the NOS boys on the bike, and they just keep pounding it. So now it's up for SAE to try and get back and reconnect with Will Wagner, but that kid is flying right now. He's a man on a mission. And you know what, Austin? I am a theater kid. I can get plenty more words for you. I'll dip into my thesaurus, maybe even sing you a song later. Let me know.
Love to hear it, but BKB is just lapped. Cutters and Delts. Judah Thompson is now staring right at the back of Will Wagner. So this is truly, pending any crashes, a 2-team race, as SAE made an exchange. It's the younger NOS, Matthew, on the bike, and it's a 15.5-second advantage for Blackheath Bulls at the moment. You talk about pedal strokes a lot, Matt, and it looks like Will's are pretty good right now. He's in great shape.
At least when I rode, my team and I always talked about circles and squares. And if you haven't watched a single-speed bike race before, certainly you know it when you see it kind of thing. And the curious thing, if you're cutters and delts right now, you can just kind of sit on Will Wagner's wheel. He's going to have to do all the work here. He's absolutely suffering, as Max was referring to. And ultimately, it's going to be up to him to stay away. SAE's also in no man's land, so they're not getting any help either. Really feels kind of like a almost time trial here to decide the Little 500.
172 laps in the books, 28 to go. That's another 7 miles on this quarter-mile lap track. And it's Will Wagner and BKB out in front. And behind him immediately is Cutters and Delts, but they have been lapped. And it's SAE a little more than a straightaway behind at the moment, as they are playing catch-up to Blackie Bulls.
Now, Austin, I want to keep the focus on first place, but there's a curious thing that might happen here, where if BKB is this far ahead, it could be the case that Delta Tau Delta and Cutters could catch SAE. We'll have to see. A lot of matches have been burned. This is a unique race in that regard. I can't recall off the top of my head a race where teams have been full gas for, we'll say, 120, 110 laps. And as BKB comes in for this exchange, which it looks fairly slow, by the way, we'll have to see if those matches and the emptiness of that match box is starting to kind of play out on the track a bit.
Yeah, it looked like some other teams were exchanging as well, and Wagner had to kind of maneuver around those guys. And now it's Paul Lee on the bike in a second race, rode 2 years ago with 3PH, 3 Parks hooligans, named after the Parks Quad of the Wright Dormitory, which if you're a current student, you don't really know what Wright is because it's currently under renovation, but the 3 Parks hooligans, founded several years ago, a very historic team in this race, and always one of the best names and best stories to shout out every single year. I take it you didn't live in Wright Quad your freshman year, Matt?
I didn't have the pleasure. I think I dodged a few landmines across the freshman quad landscape. I'll just leave it at that.
As did I, thankfully. It's still BKB out in front. Blackie Bulls, independent team. And it's SAE getting ready. Actually, they just made an exchange. Lucas Lemmy is on the bike for the team currently riding in second place, 11 seconds behind BKB. It's currently Paul Lee on this set for Blackie Bulls. Kai Alpha drafting right behind him. This feels like it's a 2-team race at the moment, considering a few other teams have essentially been lapped. Cutters and Delts currently riding 3rd and 4th. Sig Ep is in 5th. Definitely a rebuilding year for them, considering they lost Will Pitts and Max Martin, 2 of the top riders last year. 20 seconds it was. Obviously that exchange was very slow, Matt, as Wagner really had to be careful working his way around other riders. But Paul Lee can still see the teams who they lapped a few moments ago with Delts and Cutters, and SAE still has some work to do.
And it's looking likely that BKB will have the opportunity to re-lap Cutters and Delta Tau Delta here. And I think another curious thing, and just to call this out, sometimes you get lost focusing on the leaders. Sig Up was in that original crash. For them to claw their way back to 5th just shows, Austin, even in a rebuilding year, that they're still very strong and well-trained.
These are guys that train year-round for just this one race in April. It was over a year ago that Blackie Bulls pulled away and won the 73rd running of the men's Little 500, and we're back on top after not being able to qualify 2 years ago. You mentioned Gavin Good, their mechanic, was the top rider on that team, and was just in disbelief when they blew across the line during qualifications for their 3rd and final attempt. Not being in the field was the biggest storyline 2 years ago, and obviously they completely redeemed themselves and are now looking for a 2-peat and are in the position to do that. They're up by 25 seconds on SAE as we approach lap 179. And you take a look now, it's about 25 seconds, and Cutters and Delts have been lapped.
Okay, Austin, so I was kind of joking when I said this earlier, but it might actually happen. I believe I see SAE is sitting in on Sig Nu going into turn 3 right now. The curious thing is that they only have half a straightaway from BKB. BKB might lap SAE here. What that really means is that Delts and Cutters are going to be on the same lap as SEE. So suddenly this is almost a race for second and third rather than a race for first, where BKB certainly has that locked up, at least how it's looking now.
It's a 35-second lap for Paul Lee. He has the lead, and it's basically a one-turn difference. You mentioned that SAE right now currently sitting between Sigma Nu and the pink of Sigma Phi Epsilon, and now SAE pulls out in front of that pack, so we'll see what SAE has to do, but there's plenty of work to be done. It was all because of really that fake exchange by Blackie Bulls, as both BKB and SAE, who went off the front around lap 80 after a crash. It was BKB that made the first move in the cat and mouse game and have been in front ever since, and they've lapped the teams currently riding third, fourth, and fifth just behind them.
I didn't bring this up earlier, but BKB has been thinking about that faked exchange for almost this entire effort. So both the kind of cadence exchanges they did prior to that fake one, the BKB rider actually kind of hung back a little bit and forced SAE to take the first lap. It's a small move, but it gives great insight into their mindset. It doesn't make too much of a needle difference in terms of actually making SAE kind of work more, but it's a small thing that shows that they were thinking about causing that chaos and ultimately separating away from SAE for at least 80 to 100 laps this entire race.
You know, we talk a lot about race strategy, and you can have all these different ideas lined up, and you probably won't use a single one of them, but just a little move like that could make all of the difference. And right now, it's basically the reason why BKB is enjoying this lengthy lead over SAE. 18 laps to go. It is Blackie Bulls in front. Viside went out in front in the first around lap 60, extended the field out a little bit and sped things up. And we're going to see BKB going for an exchange. Judah Thompson marking, and he goes out in front alongside Delts. And it's Zach Villarreal, the junior, the only rookie in this race for BKB, is on the bike, finished 47th in ITTs. By that mark, the weakest of the four riders, but he's going to have to do a set here and try and keep BKB in front.
So here's a curious thing. So Cutters and Delts just sat on, I believe it was Paul Lee's wheel for some time with BKB. Now Judah's kind of rested. He's been drafting. He's like, okay, we can crank. I got some free air again. Jack Lloyd is saying, Judah, you are so strong. I'm just going to stick to your wheel, and you're going to tow me up to SAE here. They're only 3 or 4 seconds behind SAE at the moment. And with the SAE spending so much energy trying to pull away, suddenly it's not looking likely that they will be able to. Austin, I hate to say this out loud, you unfortunately begin to question, will they even be on the podium today despite spending so much time out front?
Crazy to think about. Obviously the crash early on around lap 80, they were a part of that, had to catch up, and then the thinking of SAE and BKB to pull out in front, and then the thinking of BKB to fake an exchange and give themselves a big lead has made a big difference. And Villarreal is moving along here. 15 laps to go here in the 2025 Men's Little 500.
So let's talk about what are ways that BKB does not win. A meteor could hit.
Not likely.
Let's see, an earthquake could happen.
Also not likely.
But more realistically, you never know when you could slip out in a turn. I think you talked about it earlier, Austin. The turns are getting a little more dusty. I would give it a 2% chance that BKB does not win this race with 15 laps to go. It would have to be something unforeseen. The teams are fresh on the front, but if they catch this lead pack here and are able to re-lap these teams, it's as good as done. Now, we're going to see Delta Tau Delta do an exchange here. Cutters will likely have at least one more exchange in the quiver as well. But if BKB can kind of just keep this up and ride clean, they don't need to be aggressive. They don't need to overdo it. If they can kind of just stay focused here, then I believe that the race is almost theirs to lose.
We're seeing an exchange getting queued up here by SAE. It is Lucas Lemmy hopping off the bike and Luke Noss, the top rider in the field, hopping on. And BKB is going to counter by bringing on Wiley Close, the sophomore. Villarreal hands the bike to him in a bike-to-bike exchange, gives him a high five. And so it's kind of that cat and mouse where you see SAE brings on Luke Noss, immediately BKB has the exchange prepared ahead of him.
And if I harken back to the point I just made, if the only way they can lose is to kind of lose focus and maybe have a wreck, then you want to keep fresh riders on the bike. You don't necessarily need to worry about taking a slight time penalty and facilitating an exchange. You want to have fresh riders that are going to feel confident and be able to keep 2 tires underneath them the entire time.
So it's the sophomore in Wiley Close who biked the penultimate set last year and handed the bike off with under 10 laps to go to Will Wagner for the victory.
This is his 3rd set in this effort. That's incredible for Wiley. I mean, again, even if he's not maybe the fastest, I'm sure he's still very capable at the moment. It doesn't matter. They just have to stay clean, and ultimately they might be lifting another trophy here in a handful of minutes.
SAE and Luke Noss pulling out in front of Cutters as those teams right now sitting 2nd and 3rd respectively. So you're right, it's kind of a race for 2nd right now. And it's SAE and Cutters sitting in those 2 positions. And it's Blackie Bulls and Wiley Close with a lengthy lead after a 37-second lap. 11 laps to go here on the Little 500. There's only one team that has gone back-to-back in this race on this track. And we saw a collision there from, looked like Fiji. But Cutters had a 5-peat in the 2000s. But Blackie Bulls trying to put their names in history and go back-to-back.
And Austin, it's not just the contenders who are tired. It's also all of the back markers and the teams who are getting lapped. And as the contenders have to pass these teams on the inside, sometimes that doesn't happen as efficiently as it can. And maybe that's what causes some of the chaos that could happen in these final 10 laps here as Luke and Judah for Cutters try to kind of navigate through these lap teams.
Blackie Bulls with a big lead over Cutters and SAE, 24 seconds ahead of Cutters, with SAE riding 3rd, Delts is 4th, and Sigep is 5th at the moment.
I mean, this is, we talk about the NBA becoming so star-heavy. Little 500 is becoming star-heavy. We've seen Judah do a monstrous effort. They were planning an exchange. They called it out down here. Phenomenal call by Cutters. Suddenly, they have been able to separate themselves, unfortunately, unfortunately for me, from Delta Tau Delta. And then you think about Luke Noss again. Again, he's been, just like Wiley, on the track a significant amount today. And you have to think, is he thinking clearly that Judah is behind him? They need to be thinking about how they're going to sprint, not just how they're going to kind of stay upright moving forward.
It's the yellow jersey of Blackie Bulls out in front, under 10 laps to go here in the 2025 Men's Little 500. It has been Blackie Bulls out in front for the last 20 laps or so.
Interesting that Cutters would exchange here. I find that very interesting. I think likely that they know that Judah is exhausted and they want to make sure they can lock in a podium finish, but it's difficult to ever turn away a lead like they've experienced, especially now that they're sending Luke out to do a few laps on his own.
Zarev hops on the bike for Cutters after a 38-second lap. That was obviously after that exchange. Blackie Bulls out in front, 23.5 seconds to lead over SAE and Cutters, who you mentioned just made an exchange with 7 laps to go. It is once again Blackie Bulls' race to lose at this junction as part of the world's greatest college weekend.
And Austin, I'm happy to see, I know the pack has certainly spread out since that lap 82 crash, but for the most part, we've seen a pretty clean race today overall, which is welcome to see after seeing some messy races over the last few years.
There was only one crash, it felt like, in last year's race that impacted things. There was only one this year, and fingers crossed that's the only one that happens. Is Delt's currently riding 4th behind Cutters and SAE. Sigep, Forrest, Human Wheels, Kai Alpha, Phi Delt, and Macro Cycling making up the top 10 right now with 6 laps to go.
And we're about to
it's
see
Wiley Close on. Will Wagner, the captain, he finished last year's race. He is currently in the pit box. The bike is being run over to him. It'll be a bike-to-bike exchange as he gets himself set up. All the yellow from the Blackie Bulls in their support section. Is this the final exchange of the race for the Blackie Bulls? Close is off, Wagner is on. It's a successful exchange with 5 laps to go. The lead, it's a pretty comfortable cushion for the Blackie Bulls. And they can feel it in that pit box. You see Close and the other riders celebrating with their fans sitting front row.
And Cutters is completely emptying the tank here. I mean, impressive from them to just kind of pull away off the front from SAE here. We'll have to see. If I'm them, I'm thinking I do not want to sprint against SAE at the moment, and so maybe they're just emptying the tank, forcing SAE to kind of have to just do this longer, consistent effort rather than sprint.
Blackie Bulls out in front, 4 laps to go. It's Will Wagner on the bike, the captain who witnessed his team fail to qualify 2 years ago, now trying to make it back-to-back.
Oh, wow. Luke's body language is tough. He wanted to come out there. He was begging the team to come out. They did not have a bike ready. Delta Tau Delta, unfortunately, still about a straightaway behind, and that would be the team that would knock them out of podium contention. So not great body language, but Luke, with kind of the gap they do have, should be able to keep this gap established, but something to keep looking out for with the 3 laps we have remaining.
And Cutters just had made an exchange as well, so they're staying in second place for now, but bouncing back and forth. But it is the yellow jersey of Blackie Bulls currently in front, and he can see Luke Noss and Cutters, and Noss will make the exchange here.
Very odd body language from SAE to kind of ask to come out, then they get the bike ready, and then they're ready to exchange, and then they decide not to. A little odd here at the end.
2 laps to go for Blackie Bulls. They've won this race in 2014, 2017, and 2024. Looking to make it a two-peat for the first time in team history. It was the first year they were on the pole position. They're looking to start first and end first. The white flag is getting ready. It's Will Wagner, who's got 1 lap to go to finish this off for the Blackie Bulls. Delts riding behind him, but they're in 4th, Cutters and SAE 2nd and 3rd respectively. Wagner, a senior, the captain of the team the past 2 years, finished off last year's race and now trying to do it again and ride off into the sunset on a winning note. Wagner's got 2 turns to glory.
In Austin, the podium has just came together. John Peterson just followed Will Wagner all the way through into this last lap.
Will Wagner's gonna finish this off. Once is cool, twice is nice. It's back-to-back for the Blackie Bulls. The winners of the 2025 Little 500. Now it's a race for 2nd place. It's Cutters, Delts, SAE, they're all in there. It's Cutters in front right now. SAE behind them, and then it's Delts. Blackie Bulls has 1, but now the attention is on 2nd. It's Cutters around turn 3, followed by SAE, who's got enough in the legs to finish 2nd. We're gonna get a crazy close conclusion for 2nd place. It's SAE 2nd, Cutters 3rd, and Delts 4th, finishing off the podium. But it's Blackie Bulls' day to remember.
From not qualifying to redemption, to establishing yourself as a dynasty, I mean, that is a strong 3 years from them, and their team is celebrating accordingly down there in the last pit of the front straightaway.
Will Wagner is returning to the pit box as he did last year as the champion. This year wearing the yellow, and for the folks returning next year, they will keep the yellow jersey on. Back-to-back winners of the Little 500, winning for the 4th time in team history. An incredible move that they made to fake an exchange, and then as the movie goes, breaking away they did, nearly lapping the field in the very end, and putting together a complete race from start to finish, with student coach Jordan Bailey getting to celebrate for the 2nd year in a row. What a story with the Blackie Bulls. BKB 1, Delts 2, Cutters 3. It's BKB with Riley Woodall for the 2nd straight year. Take it away, Riley.
Hey, thanks XAP, guys, congratulations. The first time in Black Key Bulls history you guys go back to back. How does this one feel?
It feels like everything. It's so great. Oh my God. It's an indescribable feeling. I sat out a year to wait for this moment, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love these guys. It's for the alumni, all the hard work we put in, for our families, for our friends, everyone. This is a group effort. Absolutely.
Jordan.
These guys put in the work. They put out the goal to win the race, and there were lots of teams that had the opportunity to do it. Not only did they win the bike race, they lapped the goddamn field, finished an entire lap up on everybody, and that was the most incredible BKB performance I've ever seen in my life.
Will, you finished the race last year. You finished the race this year. Is it time? Is it time to do a walk?
It's time.
To take a walk?
Let's do it.
How does it feel, Will? You told me it was one of the most emotional moments of your life last year when BKB won, when you crossed that finish line. How does this moment compare to last year?
Man, I mean, after last year, if I didn't want to do it again, I would have been crazy. That was the most insane feeling last year. And at the start of this race, I told you you would be interviewing us after this again. And here we are. That's what we had to do. We came, got it done. All of our fans, family, friends, supporters, classmates, alumni, people I don't even know have been cheering us on. And that means the world. I cried at our team dinner yesterday. This was the last set I'd do in my life, and I couldn't have had a better support group behind us. I give it all to them.
Hey, Will, congratulations, my man. Take it in. Congrats, guys. Austin, back up top to you.
Thanks a lot, Riley. Shout out to Jordan Bailey and the crew. He was right. They nearly lapped the field in the very end on the way to victory, and they will get to hoist that Borg Warner trophy to the skies for the second straight year. The support from BKB is unmatched, and Wagner clearly felt the emotions last night. He's going to be feeling them again tonight.
Oh, they're going to be feeling them the rest of their life, frankly, Austin. And, you know, it just kind of sunk into me that they did lap the field and win. And after so many years in a row of teams trying to lap the field to win, it turns out it wasn't a proactive lap the field move that won. It was a reactive one where they were able to really showcase the strength of their team, ultimately kind of facilitate a team pursuit effort almost for 120 laps, and enable themselves to distance themselves from the rest of the field in a way that clearly showed that they were one of, if not, of course, the best team on the track today.
Black Key Bulls first, Delta Tau Delta second. They are back on the podium for the third time in team history. SAE just falls short, finishing fourth. Cutters finishing in third. Historic team. Then SIGEP fifth, Forest sixth, Human Wheels, Chi Alpha, Phi Delta Theta, and Macro Cycling composing of the top 10. As the teams are making their way towards the podium of the trophy ceremony, we'll send it down to the field mics and PA announcer Jeremy Gray.
Fans, please direct your attention to the stage area as we recognize our top three finishers for today's race. Helping with today's award ceremony is IU Foundation President JT Forbes, IU Student Foundation Interim Director Emily Carrico, Little 500 Race Director Peter Scholes, IU Student Foundation Steering Committee President Sana Zaveri, and Riders Council President Chloe Eads. Put your hands together for our third place finisher, Cutters. Riders Judah Thompson, Jake Zarov, Billy Gregory, and Karam Keskin. Give it up for Cutters. Our second place finisher, Sigma Alpha Epsilon. Luke Nass, Lucas Levy, Brett Skvarna, and Matthew Nass, SAE. And put your hands together for the 2025 Men's Little 500 Champions for the 4th time ever and in back-to-back years, the Black Key Bows. At this time, Sana Zaveri and Chloe Eads will present BKB with Lays and Little 500 Bisons. The members of the Black Key Bulls, Will Wagner, Wiley Close, Paul Lee, and Zach Villarreal. Presenting our winners with their commemorative Coca-Cola Championship bottles is Jason Nethery. Next, the great Emily Carrico will now present the Bill Armstrong Trophy. Now, J.T. Forbes will present the Borg Warner Trophy. The Borg Warner is an exact replica of the Indianapolis 500 Trophy and has been awarded to the winning Little 500 team since 1979. Now, please welcome Peter Scholes as he presents the 2025 Little 500 Bicycle. Next, our champions will head to the track for one of the great IU traditions, the Victory Lap.
Back here on top of the broadcast booth alongside Matt McGorry, I am Austin Platt. An incredible race that sees Black Key Bulls crown the champs once again as they walk down the steps. Winners for the 2nd straight year. Now we'll take a look back at some of the race highlights before the victory lap. Matt, an unbelievable field, an unbelievable race from start to finish on a glorious day here in Bloomington with SAE, BKB Cutters as the top 3 going in. The race started, was pretty clean throughout. Phi-Sci tried, going off the front at the very beginning, and then it was between BKB and SAE really the rest of the way.
And they were really able to partner, work collaboratively for the bulk of that effort. Once we started seeing that, yes, this was indeed looking like it was going to stick, we started keeping an eye out for those cat and mouse games, which eventually came to fruition and ultimately decided the race.
That was the big crash around lap 82, which put Cutters, and along with some of the other teams, Chi Alpha, Phi Delt, Sigma Nu, on the back half. And then here was the fake exchange, Matt, which allowed BKB to go out in front of SAE. There's Jordan Bailey knowing what that move, it was going to do and pay off, and it all leads with Will Wagner crowning himself the champion for the second straight year.
Austin, I know you're a senior, but I think some BKB alums might want to fund some sort of grad degree to keep you commentating in the booth. I mean, 2 for 2 with you up here. I mean, it's certainly going to be appetizing for them.
I did the video packages too both years for
wow.
them. So at least I can say I'm not a jinx for BKB. And if they want me at their, I guess, winning dinner tonight, I'll be happy to oblige. We'll take a look now at the top 10. I had this wrong before we went to the trophy ceremony, so this is right. Blackie Bulls on top, SAE second, and a close finish with Cutters. They finished third. Delta Tau Delta finishing fourth. Sigma Phi Epsilon, who started in fourth, returning 2 of their riders from last year, finishing fifth. Then Forest, who started in fifth. We didn't know exactly what to expect out of Forest. They finished sixth. Human Wheels, their best finish ever in program history. Owen Teed, the senior, the president of Riders Council, a phenomenal race from his squad. Chi Alpha 8th. Phi Delt, the winners 3 years ago, in 9th. And then Macro Cycling, who started in 13th, finishing in 10th as the top 10. And now for one of the best traditions of them all, the victory lap for the second straight year. This is definitely a much slower lap than these guys are used to.
Yes, nice to take some time just to really let this sink in. I think a lot of their fans, I mean, they have an entire crew here. We talked about it earlier. Despite not being a fraternity where you automatically have this fan base that's going to orient around yourself, to have such a group of alumni, friends, family, etc., travel and attend and support your team really goes to show why some of these teams are able to be so competitive, seeing a support network like this.
Blackie Bulls came in with 8 guys listed performing and participating in ITTs. They got it down to 4, and clearly it was the right 4, as the quad of Will Wagner, Wiley Close, Paul Lee, and Zach Villarreal are able to live out their dreams. For Will and Wiley, they get to do it in back-to-back years.
And what's great, Austin, is they don't even have to come up with new jerseys and shirts next year.
That's the best part. It makes everyone's job for the IU Student Foundation and everyone who puts in so much work to make this race happen. The good thing is you just wash them. That would probably be the first step. But other than that, everything else can really be the same. For Will Wagner and Paul Lee, a pair of seniors, they will ride off into the sunset as champs. And some of these fans who probably did this last year probably know what this feeling is like, getting their steps in and jogging behind their 4 winning riders as they go across Bill Armstrong Stadium for another quarter mile and another victory for BKB, their 4th in program history, really cementing themselves as potentially a dynasty, but obviously one of the best independent teams and really teams overall in this race.
4 wins, I think, in the last 12 years or so. I mean, that is stellar. You put them on the same level as Cutters almost nowadays, even with Cutters' kind of more name brand and historic legacy. Really interested to see how the Greeks bounce back next year. I mean, SAE has had a few a few attempts now with Luke Nass at the helm. I think we're going to see a very competitive bounce back from the Greek community, but I'm sure we're going to be talking about BKB shooting for a three-peat this time next year.
They've won 4 times now in 11 years, 14, 17, 24, and 25. He started in 2006 and finished top 10 every single year. And they are about to finish up the victory lap here at Bill Armstrong Stadium, which caps off an entire year of work by all of these riders. A big congratulations to all 33 teams, every single rider on those 4 teams. 33 times 4 gets me to 132 riders, I believe, if my math is correct, but obviously the work goes in for all of them, and they should all celebrate tonight. But obviously the team celebrating the most, Blackie Bulls, after the victory lap, lap number 201, certainly feels the best, and only one team gets to do it. And the team that had number 1 on their back had the target on their back, and guess what? A year from now, it'll be the same story.
Exactly, Austin. Great race. Glad to see it come down to performance, and looking forward to doing it all again next year with the greatest college sports weekend.
Well, that'll wrap things up here from the broadcast booth. As part of the world's greatest college weekend, we'll give out some thank yous to our executive producer standing to my right, Galen Clavio, for our other producers, Emily Fox, Kenny Recklaw, Brendan Tanaka, our director, Henry Thuss, for my 2 spotters here, Andrew Hilsman and Ian Plaskoff, for our field reporters, Riley Woodall, Max Parker, and Kara Adams, and the man standing to my left, former rider
Matt McGrory. I am Austin Platt signing off here for the Little 500. This has been the world's greatest college weekend. We will talk to you next April.